How's it going, Shelly? Most selfish person that I know. Here we go down the rabbit hole. Ooh, do I sound really echoey right now? No, sounds fine. Sounds fine. All right. Gene, not much, dude. How have you been? I don't see you around as often. What's new? Are you still I don't know if you were working on like a series or anything, but I know you were working on some like original characters. Did you ever get those like finalized or anything? Like I said, I haven't seen much of you, like on Twitter at least. Doubled. How you doing? Gotta be honest, I don't recognize the name, so I'm assuming you're new. Welcome. Hope you enjoy what you're about to hear. Just gonna wait a little bit, see if anyone else joins. I don't expect a huge crowd. I've been MIA for so long, so yeah, it might not be a crazy audience. But are we getting spoilers today, by the way? I feel like Tabata is on break, and I could be wrong. Let me see on the Viz app what the schedule looks like. Because, yeah, I could have sworn. Oh, wow, Viz is finally upping their game. I hate the Viz app. New chapter coming in 5 days. Okay, so no, we're not on break. Cool, good. So, yeah, we should be getting spoilers tonight then, right? Gene, I feel you, dude. School should be first, but it does suck like not being able to focus on like the stuff you're passionate about. And I know you're really developing like your characters and stuff like that. So when you get the time, definitely get back into it. I mean, I think one of my and I'll say this from experience too. I think one of my biggest regrets was not finishing college because I thought I found a career that I'd stay in, and then I ended up not liking it. But what happened now is that I barely have time to even like touch my instruments. Like I'm barely even at home. So I mean, thankfully my career is passion driven, but I definitely miss being able to like sit down for hours and play my piano, my guitar. I was playing my violin. I can't even. It's been so long I can't even find my violin. My flute, same thing. Don't even know where that thing went. So like focus on that first, and then it's that saying, you do what you have to, you do what you need to do so that you can do what you want to do later. So I think that's my biggest takeaway at this point in life, sir. But definitely stay on it when you can. You'll always have time to do stuff. Always have time to do stuff at some point. So just don't let that talent go to waste. Um, Um, Shelly, you heard that we'll be getting spoilers tomorrow night? Okay. Whatever the case is, I'm just glad we're getting spoilers this week. I was first under the impression that we weren't getting a chapter at all this week. But we are, so that's cool. Alright, so... Oh shoot, I should have also pulled up TCB so that we can look at the chapter together. So yeah, I think we will start with reading the chapter together since I missed it for Sunday and yesterday when I was supposed to actually stream. But yeah, I thought this was a really cool chapter for a lot of reasons. A lot of things were confirmed that were just theories just like a week or two ago, so that was also really cool. But just the development, I love, the pacing. I just like how Tabata does backstories in general, honestly. Like, it's, he does it in a way where it's like, it doesn't take too much of your time. And I don't know if he's getting it from, like, Naoya in a sense, because this one was more concise than his previous ones, I feel like. But I maybe not the okay, because his Noct one was pretty on point. The pacing there was really good. It didn't take forever to get to the point. But if you guys are reading like Kaiju number 8, those two authors trained under the same person as far as writing manga goes. So I do think Nalia has an edge on Tabata, however, as far as being able to hype up a concept or a character in the shortest amount of time. Like he'll do it in a literal panel, and that character is already goated. So this chapter kind of reminded me a bit of Kaiju number 8. Where you got the backstory. It was intense. It was as intense as it needed to be. Left just a good amount of mystery and got you hyped for the next chapter. Like it was really well written as far as that goes. So really happy about that. But yeah, let's just start reading through this together and see where we're at. So I've been looking at the background and I know it looks clearer in the officials, but like notice that the water is all white. Like he's really emphasizing this like white water. And I think these are rocks on the side, so I wouldn't even say that's black water. But also notice later into the chapter that the water is also split, so not all of it is black. It's just like that area. But anyway, so the Yami clan are descendants of a group of assassins known as the Kijin. This was really cool, and there was no better shot than this. I don't know what it you know what it reminds me of. This is why I like talking to you guys. You guys let me you guys make me remember things. So Sly Cooper, family. Oh, I should have put a space in there. I didn't do it because I think they had a very similar image, if I'm not mistaken. Where they're. By the way, if you have not played this game, play this game. Like the best game ever. Games, just the best series. Sorry to go off on a tangent, but you guys know what you signed up for. Anyway, I want to say it was in Sly Cooper 3. They used a very similar shot of his ancestors and the various weapons they had. It was so cool. But yeah, I just like how they use the silhouettes. And let me see if I can get that picture. I'm going to be hell-bent on this one. Because I was trying to figure out, like, what it reminded me of. And this was it. Damn, I don't see it. It's in one of the cut footages of the game, so it might not show up. Damn. But yeah, anyway, that's what it reminded me of. But yeah, this was a really cool picture. Like, I love the only defining characteristics are their poses, and that's really it. Maybe like their hair, maybe. But love it, and I love that this is really pushing something that we've been talking about on this channel for a long time too. Oh, by the way, what's up, Trayvon Salik? So it's the fact that magic or magic power is genetic, right? In every sense of that spectrum, coming from like the amount of magic you have. You know, now we know that these guys were like they were that family, right? They would be equivalent to like royals. No. They would be equivalent to nobles at least, because they are a secondary clan. So it kind of explains things like why Yami even came close to any of the captains when he was a foreigner. So now we know there was some amount of royalty within him. On top of that, they all seem to have dark magic. So this really confirms the fact, like I've been pointing out, with Vermilions having all fire-based magic, all the Silvas, with the exception of Nozel, having water-based magic, you know. All that stuff is genetic. And I think, and we made a whole video about genetics too, I think genetics will play a big role in the series. Now, I know a lot of people are kind of like, they really want Asta to, like, they want him to stay this really unimportant character. And they're, like I've been saying with the Metatron theory, that's really, I feel like, the only way, if not exactly Metatron, a like concept, but it's the only way that he could stay a nobody, in quotes. and have everyone satisfied. Because when it comes down to it, and I've said it in other streams, most anime comes down to genetics. It's who you were born to, and that's what it comes down to. Not that hard work means nothing, and I think people just have this weird line, and so obscure to even them, that they blend this like, oh, he was born with the power, so his hard work actually just meant nothing, and that's not true at all. Talent has a limit, whereas hard work does not. So if you have both, yes, you have an edge, but hard work still plays a part in it. But anyway, I didn't even make it past the first page and I'm on a rant. Here we go. Yami clan are descendants of the assassins known as Kijin. Our ancestors made a name for themselves fighting across numerous battlefields during the years of war. Now, I'd be curious about what these wars were really about and who they were against. I know that they labeled these outsiders as like barbarians, not foreigners like Asta is, but like those four guys that we were first initially introduced to how badass Ichika is. They labeled as barbarians, I believe. So I want to know what the relationship between these other lands or provinces are exactly. Wow, lots of ads. Okay, here we go. See, this is what I'm talking about. We got like a regular ocean here, and then we have this part of the ocean is all black. So we'll kind of talk about that in a bit. Let's get through it. So samurai, they were entrusted with the protection of the land of the sun. Of the 5 provinces in this country, they guarded the province which belonged to the Ryudo family. And also on top of that, they also have a better picture of this, but this light you see up here is like, it's more than just light. It's like I don't know how to describe it, but it's light. According to this legend, this province was where a 5-headed dragon, or the Gozu-Ryu, which had run rampant through the land of the sun, was appeased by a celestial maiden. So, if you guys don't know by now, this is the name of this character is called Benzaiten, and I even put on Twitter that this is probably where they got the name Zetten from, because you have Benzaiten, and you can stretch that to Zetten, and she came from the sky, obviously, on a cloud. It's the legend. It's a literal legend in the real lore. So I want to know how far Tawada is going to take this, because as much lore that he draws off of, I don't think he's really gone like page by page, word for word, through a legend. So that's pretty cool. So it said the 5-headed dragon's Yoryoku seeped out into the sea, turning it black and stagnant. It is said that this caused a distortion in time and space that was connected to hell. So that was the biggest confirmation that we had, that Hino does have a connection to the underworld, which is dope, which is really dope. But I want you guys to understand that with this legend, from this page to this page, what she says, there is a huge chunk of this lore missing, right? So we have to understand that Ichika, not that she's ignorant of the lore, she only knows how much she knows, right? How much she's been taught. So I wouldn't say this is just the story. Like, something more specific is happening. Now in the legend, there's a couple of different renditions of what happens. So they say that the Gozu-Ryu falls in love with the maiden, and the maiden doesn't really fall in love back, but takes advantage of the dragon's feelings. And something they also don't mention here, which is drawn off of a theory that I'm going to tell you guys here, is that the dragon is in possession of a wish-granting jewel that Benzaiten ultimately recovers for herself, and then it's been guarded within like one of her shrines. She's got 3, and we'll also talk about that. But there's a lot more to this than just what she said. So then we get straight into the action, right? So it says, "What rubbish! We're proud descendants of the demon sword wielders." Turns out that's not really what they said. It's like spirit sword wielders. Maybe we'll look through the BC spoiler stuff, because I wonder how they even got demon, unless that was the kanji for demon. Yeah, really curious how they got that. But I know there is some kanji that can be either spirit or demon, so that's probably what the confusion is. I'm expected to just sit around and defend some remote territory. There's no chance in hell I can do that. The blood in your yoku of our clan is crying out. He sounds like such an NPC. Don't you agree, Tsukihiro? Even calling Yami by a slave name, bro. Like, stop. He's not Tsukihiro. Only my father could spew such crap. I really like how dialed in Tabata has gotten into drawing Yami as a kid. Like, he looks so much better than, like, the first times we saw him. What was that? An Oni-chan, so that's big brother. And then father. So, we can gather that the guy's a drunk. Can't control his emotions that much. And he's mad because the eyes of Ichika remind him of who I'd assume is his wife. However, the status of women in hierarchies like this, when, you know, samurai and shogun are involved, are a bit complicated, to say the least. So, like, it's along the lines of, like, the higher up you are, the less say you have as a woman. But then as you get older, the more say you have. And it almost looks like a monarchy. It's really weird how the system is portrayed. But that's essentially, that's of course Spark Notes. It's not the exact thing. But yeah, it's really weird that he seems to view her in this, like, hateful kind of light. So I wonder what that's about. You look just like her. She gave birth to a damn girl and then up and died on us. So, but then again, it does sound like he kind of held her to enough regard to, like, do the clan some good, you know? But no one's in control of having a girl, so that's a thing. Someone who can't fight isn't needed in the Yami clan, which is so ironic that not only can she fight, she's a really good fighter. Then Yami sticks up for it. So I really love the imagery, though. Like, you see that he's working his muscles. Now, I think we have, actually, with Ichika. But I really like this. And then when you go back to, I think it's chapter 37, when he's fighting Patri, he uses the exact description that we're given as far as ki and using it with magic power goes, and he includes the muscle usage too. So I really love the consistency, and you can see it in the imagery that Yami has always used it like this. Calls him a shitty dad, and he says the feudal lord's son is sure to have vast Yoku, but I bet you're even more powerful than he is. So here we have to assume he's talking about Ryu. So the biggest thing that everyone's drawing away here is that Ryu used to have Yoryoku, or he used to have magic, but he lost it. And the question is how or why. And again, we will talk about it. You're the one who will inherit the title of the clan's strongest Kijin, or I guess the officials call it Demon Lord, which is crazy. And then they just walk out on him. I like he just goes from this huge statement of excitement, and then he just walks away like, what a load of crap. I'm gonna fish, and brings Ichika with him, and he says, when you get back, I'll give you some more training. So it was this picture that I really like. So you see that there's an emphasis on, this isn't just like a son. This is something way different. And it's like whatever's about to happen in this land is about to be some of the craziest stuff we've seen. I can promise that. But yeah. So then we get this fish that's topside. Someone pointed out that it looks like a Adramalex wings, and that's actually a really cool observation. Because, yeah, it really does. Especially in the officials, you get to make out these bumps, and it looks like what's covering his wings. So it's really cool, but it kind of got me to, like, think about, like, okay, so this is connected to hell, and then we see, like, Libe, when he's telling his backstory, and he's in the underworld getting tortured, the ground that he's kneeling on looks, I won't say it looks like water, but it looks like, it is tainted land. And, I can only imagine if, like, there's a mirror effect. And what I mean by that is, like, let's say you walked out into the middle of this water, like you just straight up Jesus it. But this spiritual mirror effect will take you to that underworld. And these beings are made from the leakage of this dragon's Yoryoku. I think it would make sense, and this has been portrayed throughout so many cultures. Like creation stories, some of the first ones too go like this, where a bigger being dies or gets dismembered, and from the body parts, the blood, the bones, eyes, all that stuff, are born several entities of godlike status that end up having to do with some other parts of creation. So it's I think it's definitely plausible, but exactly how it works is still up in the air. So they say, oh, it's an oni pufferfish, so demon pufferfish. Big ones like that are hard to catch because it's mostly inedible because it's poisonous, though. But the parts of it you can eat are delicious. So it's really funny if you do think if this fish is somehow connected to a Dramalek, that if you've always thought he's had poison magic, this would then be that panel to come back to and be like, oh my god, he's been foreshadowing this whole time. And through a fish. But anyway, you've got a real talent for fishing. You're amazing, big brother. Doing as you please, are you? Then let me get on it, too. So we see Ryu hopping over. And he says, Yami says, well, if it... Or no, that's just some random guy. Well, if it isn't the Ryu family's... Wait, you'll get your kimono dirty if you join us now. And he doesn't mind. So we already know that Ryu's that type of kid where he's not affected by status. He's obviously going to be respected by the many because of his status. But he'd rather be at ground zero with everyone else, enjoying life the way it's supposed to be treated, or enjoyed, and that's equally with each other. So then we get this. The Overseer is going to get mad at you again, Ryu. So I want to know... is that what it said in the officials? I want to look at that really quick. So if he's saying overseers, I'm just scrolling to it. So your minders. So yeah, they don't talk about overseers. So I was going to say, I wonder if that has to do with the eye that he has, but that's not what it says in the officials. Yeah, so they're like retainers, it sounds like. So it don't matter how familiar you get with her, she ain't gonna change. Don't say that, Yami. I don't care what your status is or how much Yoku you got. What I want is for everyone in this country to live and laugh together as equals. So this guy was just like Asta. He had a dream, but he had we assume, he's got a ton of Yoryoku, whereas Asta started out with no magic at all, but still had this dream. And it seems that Ryu still holds this dream regardless of having no magic. You've got to be pretty ignorant of the world if you have a lofty dream like that. Still, can't say I hate him. Those sorts of dreams. So Yami has always liked this idea, and it started with Ryu for him. So it really pushes the idea that Yami chose Asta for this very reason, that he reminded him of Ryu. That is, if he remembers any of these events that happened on this island. I also thought the same way, but his words were false. He was just like Father said he was. He was the same as Father. No, he was even more of a Kijin than Father. So let's understand that the last time we saw a backdrop like this, over some cryptic words like this, someone had a dual personality. Or there was just a devil at play, messing with their mentality. So this should be alarming, the way this is framed here. That there might be something else here at play that we don't know about yet. Right? And it goes with the whole massacre thing. Now, let's also take into consideration that in chapter 37 through I think 41, Yami's fighting Patri, and Patri tells him a story that you think would resonate with a guy like Yami, right? About how his entire family, all of his friends were slain and their powers were stolen. Now that part was specific to them. But his entire family was slain, and all Yami could say was, yeah, well, I was a foreigner and I beat up some people, became the head of a group, and here I am. That's literally all he said. There was no amount of empathy, no amount of compassion for what happened. So it's a little weird, which is why I still question if Yami remembers any of these details. Now, something could go along the lines of, and I did suggest this a couple streams back, or actually maybe 3, where either Ryu or there could be an outside force. Now, this could be the Gozu Ryu at play, or a demon like Lucificus at play that can, in fact, shapeshift. And the importance behind this is also, I did incorporate the thought and importance of black hair in this series, where Raya has black, or his reincarnation at least, had black hair, and he uses his copy magic to shapeshift into William during a meeting. Now, this is before we knew that William was the actual traitor. This is before Gildray gets exposed. And Raya has walked out of the meeting. He changes back to himself. And we have to understand that not only did he copy probably like the magic and the likeness of William, but he sat in front of a guy who was a human lie detector, which means his key was effectively changed as well. So if someone can mask their key, then pulling something off like this could really be damaging to this person. So I'm wondering if that's the case. Yami was sent away on like a fishing boat or whatever, and forced to capsize so that he could be framed. Now, I don't know what the significance behind this would be. We don't know Yami's purpose per se, but we will theorize on it once we're done here. And yeah, it has a lot to do with the moon. So, we get the look back. Itachi invented that look back, by the way, guys. I don't know if you noticed, but, yeah. This is only something Itachi would do, so shame, Tabata, shame. And so Asta, awestruck, no way. And then he abandoned us. So, I want to know what that looked like. Did he just look back and hop in one of those dinghies and grab his fishing rod and then leave? Or did he stick around for like a couple of days, was like, oh, yeah, see if it kind of blows over, and then it didn't blow over and he just walks away, or not walks away, but like, boats away. So I want to know what that process looked like from her point of view. Running away to live in a foreign country with people like you. So it almost is implied that these people may know about the Four Kingdoms, but don't associate with the Four Kingdoms. And if that's the case, I want to know why. I mean, I think it's obvious. The people in the Four Kingdoms are definitely... I think they would be considered more savage, to be honest. We got people contracting with devils, opening the gates of hell over there. And these guys, more or less, are living pretty peacefully. I know they have some minor conflicts, it sounds like, but it doesn't sound anywhere near as volatile as the Four Kingdoms once was, I would say, I guess. It's pretty much now together because of the efforts of Asta. And she questions him, and you would trust such a man, how dare you? So this is where Ichika starts looking really, really unreasonable. And we're going to talk about this specific panel here. There must be some mistake. Captain Yami would never do something like that. I believe in the Captain Yami that I've seen. Very reasonable statement, right? Like, he can only judge someone by what he's seen. And especially after an event like this. Now, not saying it's right? However, it doesn't seem like Ichika has told us the entire story. She can only say what she's observed. And And I think a lot of us are on board with the fact that Yami probably did this for a reason. And as we get to the last page, I want to share an idea that WK Minato had originally came up with when we were messaging each other. And why I think that idea would be really cool. I don't know if it really is going to be the case or not, but I think it's cool to think about. We'll talk about it. Don't screw with me, you cretin, and then, or cretin, however you want to do it. I don't know how bougie you are. I saw it with my own eyes. It's the truth. So she saw him standing amongst all the bodies, right? Now, let's also look at it like this. Let's play devil's advocate really quick. She did not see the actual killing, the massacre of this clan. She just has seen Yami standing there with a bloody sword, and that's it. So we as humans do what's called contextualizing. You're gonna draw lines to make something make sense that is otherwise missing pieces. That's what this channel is all about. But let's realize she didn't witness that part of this, not that she's mentioned. So for all we know, let's say Yami has been fighting demons, actual demons. We don't have fossil evidence of demons because they don't leave anything behind, right? So with the blood on his katana, like, look at it. It is fresh. Like, it is still dripping a ton of blood. And it looks like he's been like these guys have been laying there for a minute, you know. There's no action shot or like speed lines of this man at his feet. I think that's his dad having fallen just then. So it doesn't make any sense, and it doesn't seem like he's in a battle pose either. So what does Yami have that can bring down this entire clan of trained assassins in a night? Something's going on. So, okay. Then we get to this. You got it wrong. Even if you're Captain Yami's little sister, I refuse to back down on this. So the real point of the matter is that Asta has had more... I don't want to say more experience. Okay, yes I would. I would say he's had more experiences with Yami and his true character than Ichika actually has. Because as a kid, you're not, like, while you're your own person, but you're still developing your identity, right, and who you are. You've not matured, and it's not until later in life that you finally do. And everything that we've seen from Yami, from preying on Veto, on giving him a proper send-off, was probably the most respectful thing we've seen in the series. Just shy of Asta giving back the grimoire that was keeping him in the game to Licht, you know. These are some of the most respectable guys. So for him to do something like this, it makes it very hard to believe that he did it on purpose. And then Ichika gets mad, whips out, she's pulling out I don't know if that's a Glock or a scroll. Oh, it's a scroll, okay. So in that case, show me the strength you've cultivated under that man. We're resuming your training. Now, her scroll looks super cool to me. I want to see everyone else's scrolls, though. Just like you wanted, I'll be going all out, and this is her armor. It looks so cool. And I no longer care if it kills you. So this is huge, though. Because, remember, we were all thinking back when he was fighting Dante, the time skip would have given him a dark cloaked armor. And we never got it. But now we got it through his little sister. And that's even more special because, remember, women weren't really samurais, right? Were warriors in general. Especially in that time. There was no way something like this could happen. And even her father says, you know... that he implies that women have no value on the battlefield. They're not fighters. But here she is in a whole samurai, like, dark cloak. She is the epitome of a warrior. So now we get into Yami and some of the significance of the moon. So throughout. And let me read your chats. I took a long time reading that, and I apologize. And then we'll get into that stuff. Um, where are we? Sleek. I think we're actually going to see True Devil Union fight next chapter because it doesn't make sense for him to use a lesser form because he will die. I believe he's going to beat him. Yeah, I agree too. He's got no choice. He's got nothing else in base form. And especially since this armor is Yoryoku based, but amped by Ki, he would need it to soften that blow anyway. So we're gonna more than likely see it. Shelly. You're talking Sleek there. Okay, Trayvon. Yeah, Wish Granting Jewel, which we're going to talk a lot about. That was the convenient part left out of that story. But to, I guess, give you guys a teaser, I believe that is what Ryu has in his eye. Is that jewel from the Gozu Ryu. You guys are talking. Oh, you guys are talking to yourselves. Chill. Which panel had that back? Oh, Andres, I know that panel was used when Longreese, like just before Longreese broke. It was used while Patri was talking. And then I'm trying to think. Oh, yeah, Julius had a couple of those too, like way before there were any real hints of him, or I think it was even before like we even knew that people could be possessed in a sense, or there could be two beings in a body. But yeah, Julius, Longreese, and Patri, that type of paneling has been used. Shelly, I'm thinking the devil was the one who slaughtered their clan and Yami had saved them. And then you tweeted a theory about it. Okay. And then Trayvon, thoughts on his heavenly maiden being connected to Ciel like a distant ancestor with the moon? With all the moon symbolism and Ciel meaning heaven, I wouldn't rule it out. Does Ciel mean heaven or sky? I thought it was sky. But I see what you're saying about the moon connection. Now, there's differences, though. And I want to bring you guys back to something that's really important, right? Tabata is always about imagery. And we have to take a lot away from what he gives us. So remember, we got this, right? This cover page of all four of the goats. And remember, they have a moon. Yami is the dark moon, Noct is the light moon. Then you have Asta, who's a dark sun, where Yuno is the bright sun, right? So this is going to go into one of the endgame theory video that I'm going to be putting out. So I think he knows to kind of get us introduced to the layout of not just the world that we know of in Black Clover, but possibly even like the universe and the layout of it. And if you're within my circles on Twitter, I released just a very rushed origin story for Astaroth based in Kemet. And I did that for a reason. And it was mostly to convey that there are kingdoms like Hino, where they have their own system, like Ki is pretty much their own system, but everyone uses it subconsciously. But they have ways of applying this to make it a more special, power, I guess. So here in Kemet, they use Heka, which is Egyptian magic. And that's really all I'm going to say about that. But yeah, I think it's leading into some bigger elements to the story that we have talked about on the channel. But the moon phase is also very important. I need to refresh on it. Maybe we'll do that live. But I believe if you have a waning moon, this is a sign of evil, while a waxing crescent would be a sign of purification. So we have here, we don't know what phase this really is. Or actually, I think it only goes one way. So, yeah, we still wouldn't know. We would have to know what the moon looked like the night before. But if this is a waning gibbous, this might not be a good sign. And if it's waxing, it could imply a couple of things. But again, I guess we'll kind of look into that as we go towards into this live. But I think the maiden is really connected to Charmy and not CL. But I'm not mad at like CL being, it's the obvious choice, right? She's got moon magic. Now, there's also something that we pointed out in other streams too, where CL, we have never seen a grimoire for her. We've never seen a grimoire like satchel for her or anything like that, which makes me really curious. And it's the same for Lois. So I wonder what the deal with that is. Now, that could be under their robes, sure. But usually, I feel like if Tabata is hiding some things that are usually pretty common, I think it might be for a reason. And I'm wondering if they may have been from Hino themselves. I find that kind of unlikely, but it would be kind of cool at the same time, because then, you know, you have the scenario where Yuno is just literally that guy, right? You know, if he can grasp the concepts of ki as well, and then he was specifically born with the intent on harnessing that second spirit within him to get two grimoires that both are insanely broken, then he's really just that guy. So then we take the concept of this like rainbow bridge, right? That's supposed to connect these realms. Yuno, in this sense, is the connector. And it goes back into the original lore of the Kabbalah, where Doth, which is where Yuno is represented, is the doorway to and from those realms. So I think with it framed like that, it makes more sense. But yeah, I think in this sense, if we go back up to, remember, Charmy is like idolized here, in the way that Buddha is idolized in some places, where he goes from an official statue to a trinket or a nifty item to donate coins to. That's exactly how they worship this Charmy character. And now it has me questioning, what if this was like a piece of cotton? The cotton is a lot like a cloud. She rides on her cotton as well. So it really gets me wondering exactly who, like, if this really is Charmy and what happened. And I'll tell you right now, for Benzaiten, she has 3 shrines, which means she was, I guess, trifurcated, split into 3. So this concept of people being able to split themselves is still being held true, because in the actual lore and actual history, they tell you that Benzaiten exists in 3 shrines at the same time. So it makes me wonder if Dwarf Charmy's one, and then the human Charmy is the actual god. And to back this theory up too, remember that Tabata has said that Charmy is a depiction of his wife. And what better way to write your wife than make her like a goddess, right? In a series to really, it has barely any weight, I guess, on the actual series. But just think, if you're a writer and you wanted to make a monument out of someone that you loved, you would give them a very respectable role. And while her role has been funny so far, right? She loves to cook. She's greedy. She's a comic relief. But she has powers that no one else has. And Tabata has said that she's the only one that can replenish both mana and physical stamina, or physical health, right, in one go. So that's my thought. I think that this goddess was more or less sealed within this dwarf Charmy. I don't know what's going on, you guys. It's so weird because we have the same story with several characters but different, right? So if we go with let's go with Charmy, right? She's got her dwarf self, which is super goofy, and then you have the human self, which is still goofy, I guess, but super OP, right? I would say that it's probably stronger than her dwarf self, with that wolf inside, which is another thing we got to talk about, because I do have a theory that if there's still a Charmy or a Benzaiten in this land, that she's going to have a fox or a kitsune. And yeah, the oh my god, I'm so sorry. I feel like I'm just stumbling. So the idea I'm trying to point out is that we're not completely sure if this is an entirely different realm or not. But if it is, we have to come to the realization that the Four Kingdoms are the Norse side of things, or this is the Japanese side of things, right? So all this lore has a lot of syncretism to it. They all have very similar, if not the same aspects, but just have different names for different things. Now, remember, another name for demons are jinn. And jinn are usually associated with, like, the Middle Eastern, like, you rub a lamp and a genie comes out. That's a jinn, but they're evil. Now, in Japanese lore, I think we went over this, but there is the Sokumo. I made it a drinking game because I said it so much and now I can't remember. Sokumo something, where if an item can live for up to 99 or 100 years, it gains a spirit, right? So that then goes into the whole jinn aspect of, not that there's that specific lore about a lamp having to exist for 100 years, but if an item does reach that stage, then a spirit comes in, you can then draw it out. Now, we have to connect this to something like Lucifagus, and we talked about it in that video, in the last video that I put out, where if Yami did so happen to be possessed by Lucifagus, because no matter how you slice it, Yami and his clan are very suitable vessels for that specific devil, if that devil's magic is dark magic. Of course, we are assuming it has not been stated explicitly, but it does look the same. So if Yami's supposed to be the next demon lord, I detail it in that video, so I won't go into it, but it takes a very simple amount of trickery that all devils are used to get a boy of that age to do what they need to so that they can get a body of their own. Now, there would also be purification rituals, which is why I think the imagery of the Torii gate is so important here too. This rope, the Shimigawa, is supposed to draw in spirits, more so kami, but I guess not all kami have to be good as well. So that's part of the it's an element that I included in Asura's origin story on Twitter, where by the end he had pretty much sucked up the entire world that he lived in, which was in a separate realm, and that went into what we know as the Qliphoth now. So at that time that Astaroth existed, there was only one level to hell, which only had Lucifero and Beelzebub at the time. The rest came later. So yeah, I think something like that could be happening. It might be a little bit big to write, though, but not impossible. Not impossible. But yeah, fair amount of manipulation can get us here. Purification, though, when it comes to Shinto shrines, does involve putting the spirit into an item, and then keeping it within that shrine so that it can't get out again, or disposing of it altogether. So I'm thinking if, let's say Lucificus possessed Yami, they seal him within that bracelet that Noct ends up wearing, someone involved in the story was already in Hino and took that ring. And could very well have been connected to the Fausts. Could have been Lucius or Julius, could have been Yuno's parents for all we know. We don't know what the circumstances would be here. But the idea is that they may have taken that ring and taken it to the Four Kingdoms for whatever reason. Maybe I can't even give you a maybe. We don't know the exact connection that the Four Kingdoms has specifically to devils. But we can say that it has a more tangible connection to it, I would say. Because when we see that devil throw Libe at the seal, he comes out in Hodge Village. So that must tell us that they're like physically, like super physically connected to hell, where this might be like they said, it's a connector. I don't know if that makes sense, but almost as if they're a layer and they're the topmost layer, right? Very confusing to think about, especially when I'm explaining it. So, probably didn't make it any better. What are you guys saying on this? Thoughts on this? Oh no, I just read that. Trayvon, do you think this distortion in the land of the sun is how Zagreus escaped? This is definitely possible. That or there's a possibility that Zagreus was also within a relic, like Lucificus was, and that relic was broken as well, intentionally or unintentionally, and he was able to escape. So right now, I currently think that Lucificus is not in the underworld. I think he, through that bracelet breaking, was set free from both Clipot and that relic. So we'll see how that plays out, though. Very mysterious devil, seemingly growing more and more important as the series goes on. And remember, Yami somehow found his way to Clover unintentionally. Yeah. So, but, Yami also didn't get there as, like a wisp, right? So we have to figure out, like, what exactly happened with Zagreus. And I've been saying this, like, when I had, like, 2 followers on both Twitter and YouTube, and the moment we know how Zagreus got to where he was, that's when we will fully know the deal behind this, like, the scenes of devils. But since we don't, it's really hard to draw some conclusions, and we have to just keep waiting, and piece by piece we're putting it together. But it's also exciting to do it that way. Another thing, we also got to look at Marks, right? If Yami doesn't seem to remember, honestly, he doesn't seem to remember, and unless Marks is messed up on his own, I don't see them accepting a guy that has massacred his family into the Clover with open arms, no matter what his power is. So it's just a little thing, Oh, here was the tangent, right? I went on a tangent and got on another tangent. So if we're looking at Charmy, and this is the thing, this is the important thing. There are intentional rebirths in this series, right? So I think this form could be closest to the goddess that we see connected to that five-headed dragon story. But we see her grimoire is split in two, and you see it in real time in the anime, that it becomes dark on one side, and one side stays light. So it's really stressing this imagery of this yin and yang almost, right? And we went over how yin and yang is just a really condensed version of what we already know, which is the Sephiroth, and the Tree of Death as well. It's the same exact thing. So this imagery is important. And I think what Tabata is trying to get at, what he's been getting at, is that you need a light half and a dark half in order to be complete. And While Charm, we don't know like the origins of this wolf at all. We've speculated that it's Fenrir or at least one of his sons, but it'll be easier to do once we know. It's just tough because it has qualities of a devil, right? It has obviously dark mana and all that, but to eat mana, it's almost like Asta's anti-magic. It is anti-magic in a sense, right? I don't think it costs her any mana personally for her wolf to eat magic because yeah, she ends up using that magic that he takes in to put into a punch and just body people. So it's interesting how that works. But she has two attributes because she's a hybrid. And then we have Yuno, who's not so much a physical hybrid, more than he is a spiritual hybrid, which has given him two grimoires with two attributes, of course. But the thing that he's lacking here is where is the dark side? And I think due with imagery that I accidentally saw in one of the openings, it does show that half of Yuno's grimoire turns dark, while half of Asta's turns light. So I am expecting some type of downfall for Yuno. And I'm curious to see, and this is what we're all waiting for, it's the money question, right? Can Lucius make Yuno a paladin? Number one, I don't think he has the intention to make him a paladin, because he's a threat to the plan overall. However, this didn't stop him from trying with Asta, because he did legitimately try, and saw that he could not turn him. So maybe he'll try, but he might run into a roadblock, because he's got two souls, right? Although technically one would be his soul, one would be his spirit, which are very different things. But if he's able to manipulate the elf soul, I wonder if he could make that into a devil. In that way, he doesn't necessarily despair. It's the elf soul that ends up going dark, which then affects him, but maybe not as direct as it would if it was just someone with one soul, where he still has control, but his power would therefore turn into something different. So it'd just be really, it'd be cool. I'm ready to see what's going to happen from that. So then, who else do we have? We've got Noct and Morgan, right? Now, these are twins. Twins are literally the same person. Like, from the scientific standpoint, literally the same person down to their genes. So, in mythology, it's also believed that it's a more intimate connection, where it's the same soul that's been split as well. The common thought, especially in Eastern cultures, is that one is yin, one is yang. I remember when I first saw twins in my life, I went to school with them. They were literally yin and yang. To this day, they are. Like, one is evil and one is not. And the the other one is, she's still evil, I think. So, it might be true. But anyway, for Noct and Morgan, we see that Noct has a dark side. And he's got that shadow. And we've talked about him in videos before, right? And then we have Morgan, who's got light magic. Now, we've not seen the nature of his light magic, which I think is going to be important, because it could be something like ultraviolet rays. Something a little more fancy with light. But remember that shadow doesn't actually have tangibilities. Light does. But if you cloak light within shadow, you have made darkness effectively. It's more tangible, and a more solid force. So I think that Noct and Morgan were supposed to be intentionally birthed or rebirthed to be able to contract with Lucifagus. So then we just get into like the whole who is Lucifagus, like who is that devil talk. Because I'm starting to lean back where I was in the very beginning, where I think Lucifagus was just a name they gave him because they couldn't identify him. Lucifagus is a class of devils and not a name. Now, there is Lucifugio Focal, who controls all of the contracts, and that would be really important in order to obtain more and more power and more contracts with devils. If you contract with the contractor, then you've essentially beat the code. But the thing about that is that Lucifugio Focal has 3 horns. And that has been unshakable in every single lore. It doesn't matter what source you go to, that's unshakable because he's the only one with 3 horns. So, kind of curious. I had speculated that that could have been Moloch, or it could have been Asmodeus. But given the very little we know, and I've also said, oh my gosh, why am I blanking on his name? He was born right next to Lucifer, Belial. We've gone every direction with this, you guys. I don't know what to think of it. I don't know what to think of it. But they put a lot of importance on that devil. So, we'll see. We'll see. But we got to keep these twin things in mind. So then we have Asta and Liebe, who are the only people in this series who's achieved something like true devil union, right? And the reason I think it's true devil union is not necessarily just because of this 50-50 contract. It would be that they share the same spirit or the same soul, right? So let's say Yami contracts with Lucifagus. It would then cause him to be able to access this true devil union as well, as he would be the perfect vessel. And it seems that they would be the same person. Now, we don't know what he looks like, of course, but let's assume that he looks like Yami too. I would say that that would be the darker half of Yami, while Yami would be the lighter half. So these physical and spiritual, hybrids and twins are going to be getting explained because it's been a common theme throughout the entire story. So, I don't know. It just looks really interesting here. So here, I think, Trey, you were asking about this, right? So these are all the moon connections that we've got, right? We've got Yami under the crescent moon. We've got Ciel, who's got moon magic. And then we've got Noct, who's seen under a full moon. Now, look at the imagery, right? The moon is surrounded by these clouds. And then we had that panel. Again, it is surrounded by clouds. And it's almost as if some celestial being with a moon eye is peering down in these places. So when you look at the moon in Japanese lore, the moon belongs to Susanoo, I believe. If you're familiar with Naruto, you probably know what that is. Hopefully, yes. Susanoo no Mikoto. They throw no Mikoto on the end of all their names, like Izanagi no Mikoto and Izanami no Mikoto. I don't know. I don't even know what no Mikoto means, but it's of something. But I believe Susanoo is the evil counterpart here. So let's kind of check this out. And I think if Yami is able to obtain some type of, unfortunately, if he obtains some type of armor or power up, it might have the name Susanoo on it, which kind of sets us up in a way. But like, come on, it's the lore. It's not copying. This is also reading through the amount of Japanese lore that I've had to read through for the past few days has made me realize Naruto was not an original story at all. The only thing original about it was the fact that there were ninjas, and their power system, which was really cool. I love the series, so don't get me wrong, but it wasn't original. It was by the book, by the literal book, and I was educated this week or last week that there were actual aliens involved in their history. So that whole Kaguya thing I thought it was an Aspel this whole time. It was never an Aspel. It was meant to happen like that. So it's I never look forward to these Naruto stands trying to claim Black Clover as, the younger sibling to Naruto. It's just not true, because Naruto is not an original story in and of itself. So here, Let's just read about Susanoo real quick. So here it says the younger brother of Amaterasu, goddess of the sun and mythical ancestress of the Japanese imperial line. He's a multifaceted deity with contradictory characteristics, both good and bad. So this is something that Yami has too, right? He's got both good and bad characteristics, both physically and I would say, I guess, mentally. But physically, we got to notice that he's got the black heart, right? But he's also a good person. But he's also known as the god of destruction, so that doesn't come from nothing. Being portrayed in various stories either as a wild, impetuous god associated with the sea and storms, as a heroic figure who killed a monstrous serpent, or as a local deity linked with the harvest and agriculture. Syncretic beliefs that arose after the introduction of Buddhism to Japan also saw Susanoo becoming conflated with deities of pestilence and disease. Susanoo, alongside Amaterasu and the earthly kami, Okuninushi, I've never heard of that deity. He's one of the central deities in the cycle of mist, recorded in the Kojiki. Okay, alongside the sun goddess. Okay, so he's just like a cool guy. It sounds like he doesn't have any specific attribution. Depicted as either Susanoo's son or scion, depending on the source, is one of the central deities of the imperial Japanese mythological cycle, recorded in the Kojiki and the Nihon Shoki. One of the gazetteer reports, I've never seen that word, but I know what it means. Commissioned by the imperial court during the same period these texts were written, that of Izumo province in western Japan also contains a number of short legends concerning Susanoo or his children, suggesting connection between the god and this region. Interesting. Okay, what do we have here? So, the name, I guess etymology is pretty important, but in this case, I don't think it would be. So, it's a lot of it's coming from violence, destruction, or to go wild. What else does it say up here? Brave, divine, master. Okay, cool. So let's see. Let's read this. This is parentage. Okay. So yeah, the parentage of Susanoo. The Kojiki and the Nihon Shoki, where this is all written, both agree in their description of Susanoo as the son of the god Izanagi and the younger brother of Amaterasu, the goddess of the sun, and of Tsukuyomi, the god of the moon. The circumstances surrounding the birth of these three deities, collectively known as the three precious children, however, they may vary between sources. Okay. In the Kojiki, Amaterasu, Tsukuyomi, and Susanoo came into existence when Izanagi bathed in a river to purify himself after visiting Yomi, the underworld, in a failed attempt to rescue his deceased wife Izanami. Amaterasu was born when Izanagi washed his left eye. Tsukuyomi was born when he washed his right eye. Go figure if you're an Itachi fan. And Susanoo was born when he washed his nose. We talked about this last year, but I gotta say it again. I still have the headcanon that the ancestors of the Uchiha who did not know anything about the Mangekyo Sharingan, but were able to use Susanoo, unlocked it from their nose. And I stand on that. Because even Itachi going blind didn't stop him from using it. Like, it's got to be from the nose. It's a nose jutsu. Izanagi then points Amaterasu to Takamagahara, which is plane of high heaven, Tsukuyomi the night, and Susanoo the seas. Susanoo, who missed his mother, kept crying and howling incessantly until his beard grew long, causing the mountains to wither and the rivers to dry up. An angry Izanagi then expelled him with the divine expulsion. So, I wouldn't say this is like the lore of Yami per se, but I do think as far as like maybe some spiritual origins, there is connection to, Amaterasu, Tsukuyomi mostly. And this could come from, the dark and light aspects of the moon. But it just depends on how Tabata really puts it. But then we have This is a common thing, and this stuck out because I've seen it in a lot of sources. So a lot of this, if you guys have been following me, has been coming back to the usage of mirrors and the importance of them in Japanese culture. And then if you're Naruto fan, along with the Susanoo, the Tsukuyomi, the Amaterasu that Itachi has, he's got the Yada mirror, right? And that's actually a huge part of the mythology, is just mirrors in general. So Izanagi begetting Amaterasu by holding... Oh, sorry, I totally jumped in the middle of that sentence. A variant legend recorded in the Shoki has Izanagi begetting Amaterasu by holding a bronze mirror in his left hand, Tsukuyomi by holding another mirror in his right hand, and Susanoo by turning his head and looking sideways. Susanoo is here also said to be banished by Izanagi due to his destructive nature. So really cool. Just talking about how they were born from the mirror. But yeah. I don't want to read this whole thing because I don't think it truly, fully applies to Yami. But I think it's just a cool tidbit that we can keep in our back pockets. If we get more origin stories about the Yami clan in general. But hey, I guess before we get into any of this, I did mention a wish-granting jewel, right? And here's where we're going to start talking about why Black Clover is not original at all. And it is a copy of a series. But it's not Naruto. No. It's not Naruto. In fact, it is a copy of Inuyasha. Now, you guys might be a little young, okay? So Inuyasha was that show back in the day. Back when Toonami first started, Inuyasha was one of those animes that was running the anime portion. Along with stuff like maybe Big O, which I always hated. Wolf's Rain was a part of that. Oh my gosh. But anyway, this is where it's going to start getting complicated, because then we start having to talk about Four Souls. And this is where the lore gets really, really interesting. So after all of these stupid ads come up here, if you're not familiar with the show Inuyasha, here's the rundown of what happens, okay? So Inuyasha is a demon. He's a dog demon. And his father was a huge deal. His father was the head of this dog clan, and he was actually this giant monstrosity of a demon, but we only know him as the bones that we see him in and the armor that he died in. Other than that, we don't really see much of him, right? I think you only see him towards the end of the series, which is a pretty long series, in a flashback. But he also has a brother named Sesshomaru. I believe they're half-brothers. Sesshomaru is a full demon. So he has a demon mother, and he's able to tap into these demonic powers. And he's extremely strong and feared by everyone. But Inuyasha is a half demon and a half human, right? So now we start leaning into this Broku's hybrid theory of Asta, right? But Inuyasha actually ends up having way more power than Sesshomaru could ever hope to get. And this is something that Sesshomaru has always been aware of, but Inuyasha has not been aware of. So there's an importance of swords as well. Inuyasha has what's called the something thing sword. Whatever. It was made from his dad's tooth. And it has a lot of power, and a fair amount of people that know what it is have actually gunned for it and wanted to take it from him. But Sesshomaru is the one that, he thinks he was the son that was supposed to be entrusted to that. So with that, they were at odds this whole time. Sesshomaru would hunt down Inuyasha and ultimately try to kill him for that sword. Now, Sesshomaru has the other sword, which only a full-bred demon can wield. Which I think ends up being not completely true, as Inuyasha, I do believe, ends up getting a hold of that sword as well. So they have these specific powers, and I couldn't tell you right here and now. But one of them is the backlash wave, which means you're taking that attack, that was sent to you and just sending it right back to them. Sounds like anti-magic, right? It's a really long sword, really big. I'll show you guys. I know it's not about the jewel itself, but you'll see what I'm talking about at least. He's walking around pretty much like an Asta with this giant ass sword, made from his dad's tooth, and yeah, it's huge. But he's able. You see, oh, that's another thing. This sword that you see here in this picture, where it's all skinny, it's that sword. So only when he touches it does the true power come out. And this is something that Shishomaru learned the hard way, and how he learned that he was not the one that was supposed to have that sword. Oh, someone made the connection. Oh, no, they didn't. I was about to say, but no, it's almost the same thing. So yeah, so back to, these were the two swords. There you go. Back to this jewel. So Inuyasha ends up, Tetsaiga, thank you, ends up falling in love with this priestess named Kikyo. And Kikyo was a high priestess. She had like the most amount of, I think it was like life force or something like that. It was like really positive. Oh, it's called K-High. And hers was vast and positive. So she was able to purify things like demons. And they lived in, I think they call it the warring states. And where they warred against demons and each other more often than just lived the normal life. And she was able to bring us some amount of peace. And Inuyasha met her, and he was able to fall in love with her, and she was able to see past the fact that he was a demon, but that he was also part human, and she believed that the human side of him could win out over the demon side, which he had fairly little control over. And she came back to the village one day, and Inuyasha had slain the entire clan and all the people of the village, and she shot an arrow at him, binding him to a tree for eternity. And the hope with their love was that this jewel would be used to wish humanity on Inuyasha, because all he wanted was to be a full human. And with all the fragments of this jewel, they'd be able to do that. And I say fragments because it was shattered. And I think it disperses every time a wish is made, kind of like Dragon Balls. And when it's all together, the user dictates the color of it, right? So we see here in this picture, it's all purple, it's radiant, it looks positive. That means it's in the hand of someone good. If it's in the hand of someone evil, it's tainted, it becomes black. So there's this other demon named Naraku. And Naraku is pretty much like the mastermind, until we find out he was not the mastermind, and he was getting played by the jewel itself. So what happens is, it wasn't Inuyasha that slayed the clan. It was Naraku who had shapeshifted into him, and he ends up running away. Sorry for like the shitty explanation. Inuyasha runs away. Kikyo hunts him down, finds him, shoots him with the arrow, and he's confused, but he goes into like a coma for hundreds of years. Somehow demons don't eat him. I don't know why, but then he's found by the reincarnation of Kikyo, who lives in another realm entirely. And they're out for the Shikon Jewel, and again, it's the same story, but this jewel itself was made between a demon and a high priestess. Like, this is the origin of the jewel. And it sounds a lot like the legend of Engoshima, which is the legend that Ichika tells in Black Clover, where there is the five-headed dragon, and then the celestial maiden. But it was when that, I think they explained it here. So if you guys don't mind, I'll just read it to you. But so it says the Shikon Jewel, or the Jewel of Four Souls, also known as the Sacred Jewel or Shikon Jewel, was a powerful marble-sized sphere which grants immense power to whoever possesses it. It is considered by Kaede, which is another high priestess, but she's an elder, as is considered by Kaede as an unholy jewel which boosts a yokai's spiritual power. So she only believed that demons could use it. Only a few individuals, such as Kagome and Kikyo, who I mentioned, can sense the presence or Kei of the jewel and its hundreds of fragments. The Shikon jewel was produced from the souls of priestess Midoriko and many demons. Their spiritual power and demon power were condensed into it. Thus, it can provide power to both people and demons who possess it. So, I believe the story goes that it was almost like a deadlock. So, all of her spiritual power mixed with the spiritual power of these demons and created this jewel. So, it's literally them, like physically them. Depending on its user's soul, the Shikon jewel's characteristics may be good or bad. When the jewel is pure, being held by ones with pure heart, it turns a soft pink color with Naoki, which is the goddess within, represented by Midoriko, meaning she's winning. While the jewel is held tainted by the soul of an evil or greedy human or yokai, it turns a lurid black violet, the evil within, represented by Magatuki, or the demon, meaning he is winning. Physically, it is a sphere that appears to be made of some sort of crystalline material prior to the accident that shattered it. It is somewhere between a marble and ping pong ball in size, blah blah blah. When purified, the jewel is a soft pink color. Okay, yeah, we got it. Blah, 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 blah. The four souls. Now, this is going to be important into what we're going to move into here. Because there might not just be one soul at play in Black Clover. There might not just be two. There might not just be three, but there might be four. But the interesting thing about this is that it comes back down to two, and you'll see why. The four souls described are referenced as the four Midamas from the Shinto philosophy. Now, Shinto is important because when you talk about the Torii gates, it always goes back to the Shinto shrines. So it comes Midamas. So the four Midamas come from the Shinto philosophy of Naoi. Arimitama, which is the courage or wild soul. Nigi Mitama, which is friendship or harmonious soul. Kushi Mitama, which is wisdom or wondrous soul. And Saki Mitama, which is love or the fortunate soul. All these together form one essence in the flesh and live inside the heart. When a person contains these four spirits at their maximum, such as Midoriko, they unite to form a really powerful balance within the soul that can be used for either good or evil. So this is a huge part of what I've been thinking is happening in Black Clover right now. And will fit into this more, this idea of perfect bodies that Lucius seems to be striving for, right? And then this idea more so verifies the fact that the siblings were made from Lucius himself, and not so much from like how it was speculated it could have been Lily and Damnatio and Lucius. But in this case, it gives us four. Now, there are some darker aspects to this, which is really cool, because it gets into the psychology that we've talked a lot about, which comes right on back to the anima and animus, the persona, and the self, and the shadow self that we've been talking about a whole lot. This is just the interpretation that the Eastern philosophy has taken on this concept, and it's actually much more uplifting and more gratuitous than the description of it in the fringe or dark psychology, which I think is kind of cool. I think Eastern philosophies are much more forgiving of humans than Western philosophy tends to be. So it's just kind of funny to look at it that way. But that's essentially the idea. I don't think we really need to go into this, but they do talk about how like the fragments of the jewels really power up a person or a demon. So they have like one demon who's got one shard of it in both of his legs. He's a wolf demon, and he can run super fast and kick really hard. So stuff like that. Or it'll make a simple centipede into a giant demon centipede, just various applications of it. But that's pretty much the idea. So let's start talking about the four souls. Let me see what you guys are talking about first. I'm talking a whole lot. Chris Hill. Hi, I haven't seen your name here. So welcome. What if the Zogratis are the 5-headed dragon, and Ryu is a sibling with a brother or something, and they all have black hair, like the Spade Kingdom and the Dark Triad could be from the Land of the Rising Sun. I'm not opposed to the Dark Triad being connected to the Land of the Rising Sun at all. I've already made a theory about that. I don't know if we'd go with them being the Gozu Ryu. I see what you're saying, though. I like it. That'd be interesting. That would be interesting. I'm not mad at that, actually. I'm not mad at that. Okay. Shelly, like I had said, I think Yami will play like Susanoo, and he have to reconcile to his sister, but I think he will slay the dragon. Well, there's no dragon to be slain. It's already gone, right? I have a feeling that Ryuda will become a paladin dragon. So there's some lore about it's Germanic lore though, which does have a place in Black Clover, but not necessarily in Hino, where there is a dragon that comes from a person. So when he goes to sleep, he becomes a dragon. It's a more spiritual endeavor than it is a physical one. And he fights off the demons that are plaguing the land when he sleeps as a dragon. So he just never sleeps, essentially. Maybe we can get into that, but it's called the Asa. Sun Jinwoo, Madara did use Susanoo without his... Right. Everyone can use it without their eyes, so it's got to be a nose jutsu. Like facts. It's got to be one. Shelly, I like Inuyasha. It was my very first manga that I had ever read. I wonder if Tabata got his inspiration from Inuyasha. But I have a feeling that it will play out like FMA. Yeah, and that was the thread I made a little while ago. I think it's... Asta is going to get to what we saw in Full Metal Alchemist called the Gate of Truth. I think we'll definitely see something like that at least. Chris Hill, Inuyasha, Bleach, Naruto, and FMA. Damn, that's a good way to do it. A little sprinkle a little Harry Potter fairy tale, and boom, you have a masterpiece. Yeah, and none of those are bad series except for Fairy Tail. It's an awful series to me. But yeah, I think, and this is something, if you guys go back, I think it didn't get flagged by YouTube, but I used to do reactions to Black Clover episodes and My Hero episodes. And I would say it in the reactions, and I did say it in some of the reviews early on in this channel, that Tabata will take every single anime trope and then play it out and almost exaggerate it, but then flip it on its head. He's really about how the story is portrayed and not so much what is being portrayed. So, and it's like, for me personally, like if, let's say we're talking about a movie, I don't care about spoilers. I don't care how it ends. Like if you tell me like, oh yeah, he dies. Okay. How do we get to that point? That's the part that matters. Like there's a difference between someone just like arbitrarily dying, like, why did they just have to kill him? And then comparing that to like, wow, his death meant the survival of X, Y, and Z, and it had all these moving parts to it. Like there has to be sufficient writing to get us to these points. So that's why I'm not too fazed by like people thinking it looks like Naruto, because let's be honest, we all have two eyes, right? It does look like Naruto. Like, and that's not an awful thing. But it's about how you write it. If you can redo a masterpiece and make it even better, I mean, that's the goal in writing, right? No story is new. Every story has an origin. This looks very similar, right? But we have to know the context to see how similar this truly is and what it means to this specific story, right? So yeah, I think there are a lot of elements from a lot of different series. Of course, Bleach is a huge one too. But it's again how we get to these events in the series. Chris Hill, or it's the Horcrux idea of Voldemort. I've definitely had a theory based specifically on a Horcrux. So it's cool that you're thinking that way. Okay. So let's get into the next part here. So we're going to look up Mitama. Right? Yeah, Mitama. Here we go. So here. We're going to... Okay, it's not that bad. Okay, cool. I remember pulling up another article that was really kind of long. But notice here. The length of Saki Mitama and Kushi Mitama. Compared to Ara and Nigi, and how these are separate and they stand alone together. They'll explain why that is. So while we could be talking about 4 souls, we could really just be talking about 2 or 3. So here we go. The Japanese word mitama, or honorable spirit, refers to the spirit of a kami, or the soul of a dead person. It is composed of 2 characters, the first of which is mi, in Japanese, which is honorable, and is simply an honorific. The second, tama, which means spirit. The character pair, mitama, here, also read as mitama, is used exclusively to refer to a kami's spirit. So here, notice the wording. This is important. And something that I've been trying to verbalize on the channel for I don't know how long. Gods and deities live on this extreme level where they can exist in so many places at once. This is what they're saying. It's a kami's spirit. Now, this is not the soul. It is part of that kami. So let's think of it as an incarnation, if you will. It's not it is not that god, but it is part of that god. Significantly, the term Mitamishiro, or Mitama representative, is a synonym of Shintai, the object which in a Shinto shrine houses the enshrined kami. This is exactly what we were just talking about with Lucifagus, possibly being put into an object. Early Japanese definitions of the Mitama, developed later by many thinkers like Motori Norinaga, he maintains it consists of several souls, relatively independent one from the other. The most developed is the Ichire Shikon, Shinto theory according to which the spirit, or the reikon, of both kami and human being consists of one whole spirit and 4 sub-souls. Now, let's take that Lucius idea and think that the triad is from him specifically. If that's the case, Julius also falls under that as well, so that would give him 4 sub-souls as well. The 4 souls are the Ara Mitama, which is the rude soul, the Nigi Mitama, which is the harmonious soul, the Saki Mitama, the happy soul, and the Kushi Mitama, the wanderous soul. Now, I think the Kushi Mitama is the most mysterious of all of them, because they don't ever really say what the wanderous soul means. Never. But it's a hard one. Like, all of these could be really up to interpretation, but wanderous sticks, and they never really explain why. But anyway, according to the theory, each of the souls making up the spirit has a character and a function of its own. They all exist at the same time, complementing each other. In the Nihon Shoki, the deity Anamuchi, or Okuninushi, I don't know who that is. Oh, that's the same guy. So that's Susanoo's son. So that deity actually meets his Kushi Mitama and Saki Mitama in the form of Omononushi. Gee, that's tough. But does not even recognize them. The 4 seem moreover to have a different importance, and different thinkers have described their interaction differently. So now they talk about the Ara and Nigi Mitama. The Ara Mitama, or the wild soul, is the rough and violent side of a spirit. A kami's first appearance is as an Ara Mitama, which must be pacified with appropriate pacification rites and worship so that the Nigi Mitama can appear. So this is important. So remember that the Torii Gate in all of its components are made to draw down a kami's spirit. And what did they just say? That the first appearance of a kami is as an Ara Mitama, which means they come down violent. Like, imagine being woke up right? Like on a weekend. You've been waking up at like 5:30 a.m. every morning, working out for 14 hours, and then going to work for another 6 hours. I don't think that math adds up, but we're going to go with it. Imagine getting woken up on a Saturday at 6 a.m. after all that BS. You're going to be mad. You're going to be throwing hands. I know I would be. So this is what it sounds like, right? The Kami's first appearance is violent, so they have to pacify it. So if this is what happens with someone like Yami, then this means that every devil, and this is the concept anyway, with the concept of the Kabbalah and the Sephirot with the Tree of Death, that every deity has a dark counterpart, and vice versa. So if it comes down violent, then it has to be pacified, and it says through the rites and worship, so that the Nigi Midama can appear. Now remember, Nigi is what? Nigi is the tranquil soul. So this is it sounds like the more enlightened side of things. So Lucifagus, we're going to use him in this case. If he possesses Yami, this could have been a Kami wanting to contact Yami, but its first initial drawing down was violent because that is exactly just how it works. And unfortunately, his clan had paid the price for that. Now, that would mean it was pacified at some point, and the Nigi Midama did appear. So the Nigi Midama should have maybe light magic if it's not a complete opposite, but it sounds like they are, because Aramidama is the wild soul, Nigi is tranquil, meaning it's very calm. So going into the Nigi Midama, being the tranquil soul, is the normal state of the Kami, its functional side, while the Aramidama appears in times of war or natural disasters. These two souls are usually considered opposites, and Norinaga believed that the other two to be no more than aspects of the Nigi Midama. So here's where we start blurring the lines. And this happens in the psychology too. Is the Aramidama is the only one that seems to be a standalone thing, has no other sub-souls or anything like that, while the Nigi Midama has been said to embody the remaining two Midama within itself. So these three are just kind of mushed together. So if we take those as maybe the triad and Lucius as the fourth man out, then this could definitely make sense. Aramidama and Nigi Midama are in any case independent agents, so much so that they can sometimes be enshrined separately in different locations in different Shintai. Now, it took me a couple times to really grasp this, but this is what we've been saying. They're not talking about just the terms Ara and Nigi, right? They're talking about these actual aspects of the gods themselves. So let's take my favorite guy. Let's take Beelzebub. And we're going to say that his Ara Midama is Beelzebub, the one that we know, the devil, right? And then the Nigi Midama is whoever the calm Beelzebub would be. If we're talking Sephiroth, that should be Raziel, I think, or Uriel. I think it's Uriel. So now we build shrines to keep their spirits housed within them, to keep them on Earth. They now exist. They are the same being. While different, they're the same in two different places at once. This is what they're talking about. So he's saying that they can be sometimes enshrined separately in different locations and different Shintai. For example, Sumiyoshi Shrine in Shimonoseki, or Seki, enshrines the Aramidama of the Sumiyoshi Kami, while Sumiyoshi Taisha in Osaka enshrines its Nigi Midama. Ise Shrine has a sub-shrine called Aramatsuri no Miya, enshrining Amaterasu's Aramidama, and Atsuta Jingu has a seisha called Ichi no Masaki for her Aramidama. I don't know what a seisha. Oh, okay, that's those things. They look like wells. But yeah, there are many shrines That's cool. I didn't know they were mini shrines. I assumed they were wells. Sorry, I gotta educate myself on some of these other things too. Oh, this is just a different shrine. Okay, cool. Midama and a Masha. Okay, yeah, we just looked at that. Oh, wait, what? They're the same thing? So Seisha. Oh, and it literally says in the top. Come on. Okay. Why would they just use it interchangeably? Like usually, here's how. Here's a brief English lesson, guys. Okay. Be consistent with your wording. So if you use, I'm bad at this though myself, but on a more official site, you think they'd be better. If you use Seisha first, you should use Seisha again, or use Masha in both. But don't change them out, especially that close together. Good lord, sloppy. So anyway. Yeah, cool. So we get into the Saki Midama, the soul of fortune. This is the happy and loving side of a whole, complete spirit. This is the soul of blessing and prosperity. In a scene of Nihon Shoki, Kami Onamuchi is described in conversation with his own Saki Midama and Kushi Midama. Within Shinto also exists the idea that this soul, which brings good harvest and catches, Motori Narinaga and others, however, believe this is to be no more than a function of the Nigi Midama. What was I going to say? Oh, this could also potentially be part of what the leaves on a clover could be as well. As we do end up getting 4. But yeah, anyway. The Kushi Midama, which is the wise soul, is the wise and experienced side of a whole, complete spirit, the wanderer soul, which appears together with the Saki Midama, the providing soul, which is the power behind the harvest. It is believed to have mysterious powers to cause transformations and to be able to cure illnesses. So, there's that. So, I want to just backtrack to something that I think is really important that pushes an idea that I've had. So it says the Japanese word Midama refers to the spirit of a kami or the soul of a dead person. So I'm beginning to lean more and more into the idea that Asta is in fact dead. And that the residents of Hino are also dead. Now you're probably asking like, well, we literally just saw that the Yami clan died. So how could they get deader? And to that, I'm going to ask you this. How does one defeat Zagrid and kill him? Or any devil for that matter, because they're dead too. So, there's levels to the afterlife. And I don't know if it's appropriate for this stream. I think it's more appropriate for the video that I'm working on offline. But there are levels of death. No, this should still apply. Let me just refresh my brain on where I gotta look, and then we can talk about it. Because, yeah, whoa, man, I just had it. It was on the tip of my tongue. But I did make a post here. Okay. So here I'm implying that the residents of Hino each have a story to tell. I mean that they might be dead, and they might have seen more things afterlife related than the people of the Four Kingdoms has. Okay. Damn, was I a little bit too cryptic in that? Because I don't remember. Oh, yeah, I do. Here we go. Back to Naruto. The paths? No. Let's look up Ashura Path first. And then it should bring me to where I need. Asura Path, excuse me. Let's get off of Naruto. History. Here we go. Okay. So this actually ends up going right into the different paths or the types of afterlife, really. Let's see if we can get off of just Asura path, though. What are they just called in general? Yeah, no. But, I mean, just to push this cultural and theological syncretism that these cultures have, just look at the See Also section, right? You get Norse lore right there, right? It's in Greek mythology, like, it's the same stuff, just told in different ways. And that's what makes it really cool. Damn. What is it called, though? No. Well, there's 6 paths, so... 6 paths, Japanese... Oh, of reincarnation. There we go. Reincarnation was the word I was looking for. Here we are. 6 realms of existence. Okay, so... this is going to end up leading into the ideas behind scrolls and grimoires and why Yami might have looked as sad as he did when he got his grimoire. So here we go. We'll read this top to bottom. So they have called it the cycle of suffering, the cycle of samsara, or cycle of reincarnation, the 6 states of existence, literally called the 6 worlds. So, let's go. 6 destinies, the wheel of life. You pick your turn. 6 paths, or Rokudo Rine, which is where they got Rine Gan. Is a Buddhist concept stemming from Hindu philosophies, commonly translated in English as the 6 realms of karmic rebirth. Long before Buddhism's introduction to India, Hindu beliefs and traditions held sway. One important concept was transmigration, more commonly known in the West as reincarnation. It holds that all living things die and are reborn again. Your rebirth into the next life will be based on your behavior in your past life. The rebirth occurs again and again. When Buddhism emerged in India around 500 BC, it too stressed this Hindu belief in transmigration, one that still plays a major role in modern Buddhist philosophy. The modern Buddhist concept of karma is also a byproduct of ancient Hindu beliefs in transmigration and reincarnation. Among Buddhists, all living beings are born into one of the 6 states of existence. Yeah, we already know that. All are trapped in this wheel of life. Now, this is really intentional wording. Remember, everything we talk about when it goes to, and I think I just scrolled past that post, this right here, where I'm saying just because we've shifted over to Japan doesn't mean none of the lore from esoteric societies doesn't matter anymore. In fact, Eastern philosophy is included. So this is the playlist. I'm telling you guys. You guys should give it a listen. But we've been, and I put the date in there for a reason. Like, this Path of the Dragon thing is not new. While we may not have said there's going to be dragons, I think I actually did end up saying that. But it's the fact that devils are referred to as dragons. And this draconian path from the book that I'm reading to you guys in this playlist, Eastern philosophy is one of the driving forces behind this. The Western part of this is really the devil names and how the Western civilization has viewed these demons overall. While the practice of reaching these demons are mostly, if not wholly, stemmed in Eastern philosophy itself. So let's get back. But I highlighted trapped because in the Gnostic belief, remember, you are trapped because the God who created the universe is actually evil, and the true God lies beyond him. And that's where the soul truly lies. So if you don't pass the test of these archons or demons that we all know of, then you stay trapped in this cycle. And that's the point. That's why, that's the whole reason why you descend down the left-hand path of magic, or maybe even the right-hand path. But it seems that the right-hand path is the more wrong path, being that the goal is to unify with the creator God, which is really not supposed to be the goal. But it also entails that there are no angels at all. And that's Robert Flood's tree, which is the one that we see Dante hold up in his fight against Yami. In that tree, there just is. And what is good is also evil, and what is evil is also good. But the purpose is to trap you in this cycle. So anyway, all are trapped in this wheel of life, as the Tibetans called it. All beings within the 6 realms are doomed to death and rebirth in a recurring cycle over countless ages, unless they can break free from desire and attain enlightenment. And that is the point of the left-hand path. Further upon death, all beings are reborn into a lower or higher realm, depending on their actions while still alive. This involves the concept of karma and karmic retribution. The lowest 3 states are called the 3 evil paths, or the 3 bad states. The Japanese spellings of all 6, plus brief descriptions, are shown below. So, first we have beings in hell, or the Naraka path. This is the lowest and worst realm, racked by torture and characterized by aggression. Second is the hungry ghosts, which is the Preta path. The realm of hungry spirits, characterized by great craving and eternal starvation. And then we have animals, which is the what? I've never heard. They call this one something different in Naruto, though. What do they call that? Tiryagyoni path. Okay. This is the realm of animals and livestock, characterized by stupidity and servitude. So, I would say we can chalk up beings in hell to like the supreme devils, right? They are characterized by aggression, and they are in the lowest and worst realm. Hungry ghosts, I don't know. We do have like Charmy's wolf, who's a clear hungry being. Don't know if I go with the term ghosts, but we do have like whatever it is in spirit that like literally eats all the mana in the area. Could be that. I don't think I'd necessarily classify it as that. The animal path, you could say things like Gimadello, Plumede, all of Nox guys could fall into this animal path. And you see that they're not as evil. So you see as we keep going up the list, they are less and less evil. This is the whole point here. So I think that's a big tell as to how things might be working in Black Clover here. So now the Asura path is the realm of anger, jealousy, and constant war. The Asura are demigods, semi-blessed beings. They are powerful, fierce, and quarrelsome. Like humans, they are partly good and partly evil. So this one's tough to say, so it gets more and more obscure for the Asura path. I don't know if there's a specific, like species I would give this. Because I would be tempted to say elves, but they weren't in constant war. They weren't angry or jealous. So it's really tough to say without them being human. But humans have their own path. So, they just call it the... No. I was trying to think of what they were calling the animal and the human paths, but... Yeah, I forgot what they said. Anyway, the human realm, beings who are both good and evil. Enlightenment is within their grasp, yet most are blinded and consumed by their desires. I mean, if that doesn't just describe humans in general, not just in Black Clover, I don't know what does. Then we have the Deva path, which is the realm of heavenly beings filled with pleasure. The Deva hold godlike powers. Some reign over celestial kingdoms. Most live in delightful happiness and splendor. They live for countless ages, but even Deva belong to the world of suffering, for their powers blind them to the world of suffering and fill them with pride, and thus even the Deva grow old and die. Some say that because their pleasure is greatest, so too is their misery. Now that fits elves almost perfectly. But I will go a step further than that and say that with this imagery of the moon, where it seems as though the moon is specifically watching some of these big events happening, especially when it comes to devils, I think that there could be a step beyond this to where we can even see, these more godlike beings like that celestial maiden as well, living on a higher plane, but don't seem to get it. Now, realize that out of all of these paths, who has the greatest chance of enlightenment? And the answer is humans. It's in their grasp, but they're blinded. Now, the Deva, you would assume that they're enlightened, but the fact that they're blinded by this is by their powers and what they can do, just shows that it's easy to get knocked right back down. So this, in and of itself, describes how we get some characters that we get, right? How some become, or just born so powerful, they seem like they are reincarnations of a stronger being, and it might be because they actually are reincarnations of a stronger being. So then it brings in this question of like, okay, so let's say Charmy is housing the goddess side of her, right? That we'll call it Benzaiten, that subdued the five-headed dragon in Hino. What if the gods and the devils both realized, and this is something I've been pointing out for a very long time, that humans are the perfect medium? Because through humans, you can gain that enlightenment, right? And this might be something even Lucius was aware of, but he's now reached this more Deva state. I didn't mean to click on it. My bad. Reached a Deva state to where now he's blinded by his own power and what he can do. So, very interesting stuff. So now we get into the important note, which is also a really cool aspect of this. So this topic is much more complicated than presented above. In Buddhism, there are actually 28 forms of existence in the three realms. The three realms, starting from the lowest, are the realm of desire, which begins from 6 classes described above, live in this realm. Here, sexual passion and other forms of desire predominate. Then there's the realm of desireless form, realm of pure form. In this realm live 18 classes of gods. Here, sexual desire and the desire for food fall away, but the capacity for enjoyment and pleasure continues. So, if you take this idea and think of exactly what it just said for the desireless form, we have someone like Odin, who specifically said he doesn't need to eat food anymore, but he does. They say he seems to get sustenance from only wine or mead. Excuse me. And it's not so much that it's sustenance for him, but it is more so him continuing that pleasure of drinking mead. Then we have the last one, the realm of formlessness. This is the bodiless realm. In this realm live 4 classes of Deva. This is a purely spiritual continuum consisting of 4 heavens, wherein one may be reborn. Now, I want to bring your attention to the Sephiroth really quick, and I'm going to show you that all of this is... Oh, no, it's going to bring up... Oh, God. I hate when that happens. I haven't even played Final Fantasy, by the way. I don't even know what it's about. I just get really annoyed with it. Okay, here we go. So, now, we've got... Nope, that was a bad picture to bring up. Why did I do that? Do better, Jack. Okay. So, the realm of formlessness that he speaks of here falls directly in line with this last world, which is the supernal triad, which does include this 4th dot. And we have 4 heavens wherein one may be reborn. Where are you reborn in this tetrad, if you will? That is through here, dot, which is connected with Yuno. Interesting stuff, right? Okay, let's keep going. So between the various forms of existence, there is no essential difference, only a karmic difference of degree. In none of them is life without limits. However, it is only as a human that one can attain enlightenment. Oh, bro, let's go. Didn't we just say this? It just makes sense, right? For this reason, Buddhism esteems the human mode of existence more highly than that of the gods, and speaks in this context of the precious human body. Incarnation as a human being is regarded as a rare opportunity in the cycle of samsara to escape the cycle, and it is a challenge and obligation of humans to perceive this opportunity and strive toward liberation or enlightenment. Although the gods are allotted a very long, happy life as a reward for previous good deeds, it is precisely this happiness that constitutes the primary hindrance on their path to liberation, since because of it, they cannot recognize the truth of suffering. So very profound thought right there, but also does confirm what we just said, that the human mode of existence is the one that we strive for, because there it seems that we have the best chance at reaching enlightenment and breaking the cycle of reincarnation, which again is a trap. It's a trap. Okay. Only those who attain enlightenment, the Bosatsu, the Rakans, and the Nyorai, I don't know who those people are free from the cycle of birth and death. We'll look at those after I get done with this paragraph, because I'd like to know. These guys are free from the cycle of birth and death, the cycle of suffering, the cycle of samsara. To escape from the cycle, one must either, 1, achieve Buddhahood or enlightenment in one's life, or 2, be reborn in Amida Nyorai's Western Pure Land, practice there, and achieve enlightenment there. Okay. Those reborn in this pure land are no longer trapped in the cycle of samsara and can thus devote all their efforts to attaining enlightenment. So I think this would fall into Hino territory. I think these guys know how to achieve that state and are thus striving for it there. 3, practice the quick path of Vajrayana Buddhism, which is Tantric or Esoteric Buddhism, which is the left-hand path of magic. 6 directions of reincarnation. 6. Oh, I want to see what these are first. I don't know what a Bosatsu is. Okay, so it's just the compassionate ones. Okay. Just want to see if there's any names that stick out at all. Okay. But yeah, okay, so it's just a person who has reached Buddhahood, I guess. Rakans, I assume, would be the same. Worthy of obeisance? I've never heard of that word. And respect, the enemy slayer, the foe destroyer. Nothing else to learn. Wow, these are just some crazy translations for this one. Okay. So, what's the point here? Okay. It's interesting. This one seems like a more violent, The most famous and earlier disciples are called the 10 Disciples, the Judai Deshi. They played a major role in Buddhism's early development and transmission within India. This is cool. Okay. I might have to read that by myself. Okay. Okay. And then the Nyorai. What does this translate to? Okay. Awakened, enlightened, ultimate state for Buddhist practitioners. Okay. Okay. New things. We're learning new things. Gotcha. Okay. Cool. I might read those on my own. Come back with something cool. All right. Yep. We got that. All right. That's where that picture was from. So 10 stages from hell to Buddhahood. There are 9 states from hell to Bosatsu. There are also 9 levels in Dante's Inferno. The highest level, the 10th level, is Buddhahood. There are 10 levels in both the Sephiroth and the Klipot. Where let's see what they say about this last level if they talk about it. After the 6 lower states come the 4 highest states, the 4 noble worlds. These final 4 stages can only be achieved through deliberate effort. In contrast, our movement in the 6 lower states is passive and blinded by false understanding. The 4 noble worlds are learning, which seeks truth from teachings or experiences from others. Realization, which seeks truth from one's own direct perception of the world. Bosatsu, which aspires to help all achieve salvation. There are 6 perfections that Bodhisattva must cultivate in order to attain Buddhahood. Another term similar to Bodhisattva is Arat. This refers to the first disciples of the historical Buddha. These disciples also attained enlightenment soon after their teacher. The term Arat is associated specifically with the Theravada school. For more on Bosatsu, we don't want more right now, thanks. But let's see. It says that they attain Buddhahood, but for a time they renounce the blissful state of nirvana, or freedom from suffering, vowing to remain on Earth in various guises or reincarnations to help all living beings each achieve salvation. Now, this is actually the point of like Jesus Christ too, right? The idea was that hell is actually Earth, or Earth is hell, or there's more to hell, but Earth is part of it essentially. And Jesus took the leap upon himself, and actually, in Gnostic beliefs, God kind of commissioned him to do it, but I guess he didn't really have to. But the idea is that he trapped himself inside of a vessel made by demons, which is the human body, in order to spread the actual word of God, which wasn't so much of like, pray to that guy because he wants your prayers. It's more like the guy that created you was not the guy you think he is. And that was a very hard gospel to tell, because you only know what you know. You either know or you don't. That's what we say around here. So anyway, then we have the Rokudo. Also occasionally read, okay, Rokudo. Okay. So according to Buddhist thought, all living beings are caught in an endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth into one of the 6 realms. We read that. Okay. Great. This is just restating what was said. So, okay. So now they're combining the 6 realms that we learned about with the 4 additional realms that they were talking about, which is enlightenment, right? So here, again, this would be Dath, Binah, Hokmah, and Keter, which is God, the Son, the Holy Spirit, and this is the actual point of rebirth, where this being is enlightened. And I'll bring up the even better one to give you guys the picture. Adam Cadmon, which is also depicted as Jesus Christ in this, so don't worry about the names. So here you see his head is where Dath should be, and you see it actually says it right above his head. And it's knowledge, and remember, learning is part of this enlightenment that they describe here. But here, in these 3 supernal states, there is no physicality whatsoever. Dath is the beginning of physicality, or the beginning of destruction of physicality. So with the head being there, this means he's achieved essentially gnosis, which is knowledge, and is now able to draw down God directly into the body of the less holy, making him enlightened, in which then the next stage of this would be death. And this is where they would become what's called the abscissimus in the esoteric philosophies, where they reach a death-like state, and then they can either choose to ascend, or, like they were just saying now, come back and spread that enlightenment. Let's see if there's anything else worth reading here. Let's read a little bit about karma. Karma, deed, fate, or work. The law of cause and effect. Doing good deeds will result in good effects. Doing bad deeds will result in bad effects. Your actions in this life thus impact where you are reincarnated into the next. In essence, you reap what you sow. The sins of the parent are not the sins of the child. That which occurs to you in this life is that which you have brought upon yourself. You're responsible for your actions, not others. Wow, this sounds like a lecture. Let's skip this paragraph. Karma was a byproduct of a belief in the transmigration and reincarnation of souls. Karma was a name for the force of all a person's acts, good or evil, in all past incarnations shaping his destiny in the next incarnation. So karma was an ingenious way of giving each person some responsibility for prosperity or suffering in the present life. A classical form of the idea imagined this karmasaya as an accumulation of the forces of good and evil from what a person did or failed to do in earlier incarnations. The suffering or good fortune in the present life was a punishment or reward for earlier acts, just as suffering or good fortune in future lives would compensate for the acts in this life. This next part doesn't look like it's super crazy. Just talking about the writings and stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah. Don't need that stuff. Interesting stuff, though. Right? A little bit of history. Let's see. Oh, look at that. The Wheel of Life. Buddha points at the moon. The moon symbolized liberation. So this is interesting. Because here, and I think I might have posted the source, the picture from the book that I got it from. Or I might not have. Let's see. Because, oh no, I didn't. Damn. Maybe I did. Maybe it's a thread. Let's hope it's a thread. It's not a thread. Then I posted it somewhere else. Did I quote myself twice? I did not. Okay. So yeah. Well, anyway, just like it says here, in the Zohar, the creation of luminaries, such as like the sun and the moon, are sources of evil. So here in Buddhism, it means liberation. 3 root delusions: greed, hatred, and lust. Ooh. So that's the pig, snake, and cock. Cock. Humans, animals, beings in hell. Yeah, we just went over all that stuff. So, 3 animals, though. Ooh. No, I thought it was going to be interesting really quick. But anyway, it says, at the center of the wheel, one finds 3 animals: a pig, a snake, and a rooster. The pig symbolizes greed, the snake, anger and hatred, and the rooster, or cock, ignorance or delusion. The 3 animals are often shown biting each other's tails to show that these evils are inseparably connected. The emotions of the 3 stem from fundamental ignorance. Together, the triad represents the root causes of trouble on earth. I mean, goes without saying, right? I think it's a really cool picture, just in general. This actually reminds me a lot of the Rosicrucian Tree of Life. It doesn't look quite like this, but it's convoluted like this is, for sure. And that is about the end of that one. So, we are talking up to 4 souls, but possibly just 2 or 3, with some sub-souls in there. And then 6 states of existence, but up to 10. But 10 makes the more sense when we connect it with the lore that we had going into the series, right? With the Sephiroth and the Qliphoth having 10 spheres. Now, if you've been around since the earlier videos, where some of this is more, it's described better, in my opinion. And more simple, because my knowledge of this was more simple at the time. You'll know that each of these spheres are called modes of existence. And you tend to move up as you start to become more enlightened and more in tune with the creator god, which is up here, called the Ein Safar. Not Keter, but the Ein Safar. So it's just really interesting. Again, none of this is different. Just because, again, we're in Hino does not mean that we gotta accept it's got to be like a dragon. It's completely different from angels. No, it's not. It just really can't be. And again, I can read you an excerpt right now out of one of these books. The Eastern philosophy is a whole part of the magic system. So I kind of hate that I'm seeing, just on Twitter generally, like, people are really abandoning the story that has been told and delicately written in order to really just lean into the lore of Japan, which is not unimportant, but it doesn't stand alone. So anyway, let's talk about this. So here, every part of the gate is important. And there's one part that I did not talk about because I was not sure about at the time. But we have oh no, and I forgot the name. Shoot. Anyway, it starts with a G. And so what's really cool about this is that in Japan, you go around and you collect these things. Now, these are like it's like a postage stamp, if you will. Or yeah, let's call it like a postage stamp. And some people will collect those to say that they've been to this place, and it's proof that they've been there. This is almost how they're treated in Japan. When you go to these shrines, you're able to, for some of them, you're able to collect this notary card, this stamp of approval. It's actually less a stamp and more of an intentional writing from a priest or a priestess who's within that shrine, guarding that shrine, I guess. And they can write down whatever you want from there, but it's going to be in calligraphy. And it has an extreme spiritual attachment to the person that it's being given to, because the parchment paper is it's almost like how the shimegawa, this rope on the torii gate, and the torii gate itself, draw down a kami. So they're really almost commissioning this kami to stay with you and look over you during your travels. So it got me thinking about, like, okay, so if they're treated like passports, imagine that these passports, in a sense, were extended to not just the torii gate, but also to these scrolls and grimoires. And now you might be asking, like, why would they be passports? So this would go into the idea that mana is inherently good, or comes from a more divine source. Maybe not necessarily good. So if you attain this, it means that you have possible entry into a higher afterlife. So now we have Lucifero, who obviously hates grimoires. He knows what they are, obviously, but he hates it. And why does this not make any sense in the story, right? Where Zagrid did everything in his power to make sure that he got a hold of a grimoire, while Lucifero doesn't want one at all. And I can only think of a couple of things here. Number one is something we talked about already, is that a grimoire means that you are able to grow your power. It's not just stagnant. Two, if it's treated like a passport, imagine a being like Lucifero, the literal lowest in hell, probably doesn't want entry back into the place that he was kicked out from. Just saying, right? Doesn't make any sense. It's like going to, like, your ex-girlfriend or boyfriend's party and you guys were on bad terms. You don't want to do that. Why? Even if it was presented, why would I take it? You know what I mean? We're just gonna fight again, right? And I'm gonna win because I got gravity magic, which is not gravity. But anyway, it was just it's a small thought, but there's a huge implication that these little postage marks, if you will, on torii gates are to that's the main protection barrier, right? Think about, if you've seen Inuyasha, they use these things to make a barrier to keep demons out. And then it's also used in, like, Naruto for several purposes, not for things like keeping demons out, but they can make barriers to keep people out, and they can use them for other things like explosions. It's cool stuff, right? Cool stuff. But anyway, that was a small thought I thought I'd throw in there. I'm doing a little more research on it, but I'm going to try and make this as inclusive as possible, because I think focusing too much on the Japanese lore is really going to be more of a hindrance than something that we can make actual theories off of. Again, it's a small part of the story, but it helps give us an idea of what's going on. So now I wanted to look at the sky again, right? You see that all these clouds are pushed back, and it looks like it's just so much light. You know what I mean? It looks more than just a light sky. Then I'm obsessed with this picture. I'm sorry, guys. Obsessed. This was found in the Shadow Garden, of the Invitation to the Shadow Garden. where they did the devil binding rituals. And right above this guy, you see something similar. Like the sky is almost splitting open. And this seems to be very similar. So I'm wondering if we'll get more of a story behind this, and if we take what we just read and couple it with this picture in specifically, what was one of those paths? One of them was the animal path, right? So I can't say what they're doing here specifically, and I know that I equated this originally back when I first saw this to Lilith, where all three of them could be Lilith, or this could be Lilith, this owl over here. This would be Lucifer or Beelzebub. And this would be, I don't know. Because I can't make out what this is. Because you can look at it and be like, maybe it's like a lion or a ram. But a ram would have like a stuck out face or snout. And this doesn't. So to me, I've always said this was a snake. I don't know if you guys see that. But just to show you guys what I'm seeing. Like, the snake is looking at you. So this is one eye, and this is another eye, and this is the nostril. And this is just the head. Like the backside. Right? It would be weird, though, on that body. So I don't think it's actually a snake. But it's not a ram. But it could just be like a demon, right? Just a really weird looking demon. Anyway, sorry. That was a tangent. But yeah. I think this imagery is going to come back. Because it just seems a little bit too intentional for Tabata to just like throw in and not do anything with. Because we do have someone, related to Scythes here. We have Jack. And then we've got the chains, which I was really hoping that the chains would go back to Revchi, and it didn't. That sucks. Because his power is really clutch. And it could even have the power to, like, subdue, maybe not someone like Lucifero, but some lower ranking devils. I would say he could definitely subdue. Like, he probably could have done away with Zagreus if he landed those chains. So there was that. But I think this is going to be connected in some way or another, especially with this sea having to do with hell and being connected to it. So there's that. Let's see. I was trying to leave myself some notes to talk about with you guys here. So I want to make sure I got through them all. One of the theories I've been leaning on for a minute, where Asa may have given up his magic for a cause. We see that Ryu was supposed to have magic, right? Yep, we got it. So maybe we can talk about how we think Ryu lost his magic. Maybe we can't, because I don't know. Okay. And the reason behind that might have been increased something you already said. So, okay. The thought behind this post was that... So we went over the wish-granting jewel that I think Ryu might have, if it's not a mirror eye like Gouge's. And this was from the five-headed dragon. Now, we've talked a lot about how the magic stones could be philosopher's stones. So, I'm wondering if in exchange for that, for his Yoryoku or magic power, he was able to make it into a jewel or a magic stone that has a singular purpose that he could achieve. And he keeps it in his eye for unknown reasons. I don't know. I mean, I guess the closer to you, the less likely it is to get lost or stolen. So that could be one thing. But I think it could suffice to say that he sacrifices magic to make that jewel. So that's a condensed version of all of his Yoryoku inside, or to make a jewel. And you have to also realize that this dragon seems to be more so connected with the Ryu clan, as the legend of Engoshima would have it, than they would be to Benzaiten. So it would make sense that he's able to create a jewel if the Gozu Ryu had a wish-granting jewel to begin with. So it could be that. And this was a post a while ago. Also made a video on this, but I have been of the thought that Asta in a past life could have had a lot of magic, but sacrificed it in order to create a better life somehow for himself or for other people. Not sure why. Maybe that could be the case. I don't know. Yep. Charmy Zaitin right there. Bro, you guys gotta help me. When Quan turns out super wrong, that Charmy is just a gag character, gotta help me ratio him. He doesn't deserve to not be ratioed. This is the offline video that I'm working on, but I want you guys to notice this, right? So we have Savor, which is probably one of my favorite triad members, but disciples, like really cool abilities. But what made him really special though was not just the magic; it was the name of the magic that he used, which was the Evil Eye of Catoblepis. And Catoblepis is an African deity. So Tabata went super heavy in the lore, and he was the only one that seemed to have this African named spell. Then we have Asta, who more so represents the esoteric side of things. It's like a Western philosophy. You can't really define exactly what it is, but I would label it more along the esoteric side. Then you have guys like even Noel fits under this. Most of the Four Kingdoms fit under this. Where you have the North side, or you could even have Mars in there. He's got the Sword of Levantine, which is Greek. These guys come from that end, and then now we have the Japanese lore, or the Eastern philosophies. So Tabata is literally globetrotting with all of this lore, and it seems to be getting farther and farther back to some specific origins that we'll talk about in the offline video. But if you were in the circle and you read my my little origin story for Astaroth, you should see where I'm going with this. Oh man, should I spoil it for you guys? Because it does talk about the fifth horn and why this might be the thing. So here I say it has less to do with devils and more so to do with the history of the final destination. But you guys let me know. Okay. Also, another thought. Could be cool if Asta is able to purify this land completely and take in the remaining parts of the Gozu Ryu. And then that would lead us perfectly into what potential consequences that Gauch's elf had proposed to Asta. Because he said a power like that doesn't come with nothing. So it would be really interesting to see it like that. Another thing I was thinking of was, like, what if Charmy's wolf is able to take in all of this? There was maybe one or two videos back in the Heart Invasion arc that I had made where I was worried that Charmy's wolf would become demonified or too amped up and go rogue because he was absorbing demonic mana. And a lot of us were speculating that whether he could even do it or not, but he did. Without much effort at all. Somehow he was able to eat all of the blasts, even though he was like not near all of them. But anyway, I think it'd be kind of cool, seeing as Charmy seems to be idolized here, if somehow she were able to get there and also take in some of the Gozu Ryu. And this could result in something a little bit different, and it could go back to that Shikon Jewel idea, where the good goddess and the bad demons end up becoming a jewel itself. which would be kind of cool, but kind of also random, right? Unless we get explanation as to how that happens before it happens. Okay, I see you guys are talking again in there. Helix, you're in. What's up, man? This could possibly lead to a sequel. It could lead to a sequel. It could. I don't think Tabata's up for a sequel, to be honest. It doesn't sound like he is. Helix, how have you been? I remember seeing you say life's been stressful. Yeah, I mean, life has been stressful as far as like health goes and stuff. It's been really stressful. But I mean, doing my best. Thanks for asking. Andreas, please spoil. Okay. Okay, here we go. I won't spoil too much, but I will talk about this fifth horn. And yeah, okay. And we've talked about it on this channel, and I'll point out the videos after I talk about it. So, this fifth horn, I don't think it necessarily has to do with Asta or Liebe achieving this new state of demonhood. Yes, it has to involve that a bit, but I think it's more so a marker of royalty. Now, what I mean by this is, what did Asta have on his head before the horn appeared? He had this headband, which turned into like a crown, right? So Mick on Twitter, I think he's Mick of Alicia right now, pointed out that this is actually called a radiate crown, and I'll show you guys what that is. And it's very specific wording too. So here, a radiate crown, also known as a solar crown or sun crown. So again, we get into that imagery that we had with Asta, Noct, Yami, and Yuno, where Yuno is the bright sun, Asta is the dark sun. So this is also called the sun crown, solar crown, eastern crown, or tyrant's crown. Is a crown, wreath, or diadem, or other headgear symbolizing the sun, or more generally, powers associated with the sun, apart from the ancient Egyptian form of a disc between two horns. Apart from the ancient Egyptian form of a disc between two horns. A disc between two horns. So very specific wording. It is shaped with a number of narrowing bands going outwards from the wearer's head to represent the rays of the sun. These may be represented either as flat on the same plane as the circlet of the crown, or rising at right angles to it. So they go a bit into the background. However, it's limited a lot to just like the coins and where you see it at and where you can find it. But I'll read this. In the iconography of ancient Egypt, the solar crown is taken as a disc framed by the horns of a ram or a cow. It is worn by deities such as Horus in his solar or hawk-headed form, Hathor and Isis. It may also be worn by pharaohs. Okay, so here, we have talked about Horus on this channel quite extensively. And if you're not familiar with the channel, oh, bro, I was gonna say, someone else is streaming about this, and they took my title. Bro, let's go ban that guy. Okay, let's see. So hopefully the search function like actually works. It never works for me. But Horus should be in the title. Here we go. Look at that. Boom. Year ago. The Aeon of Horus. And it's also talked about in this video too. That they created the Thamiel. That's a theory, man. That brings me back. Damn. I might have to listen to that one of these days. Because that was a theory. That was a theory. But yeah. So when we talk about, and it's not just that one, we talk about aeons a couple of times. So anytime you see the word Aeon, just know that Horus is involved. And then there's one specific one I can't remember the name of, but I talk about cosmic something. Their cosmic standings or roles. Here we go. This video as well will tell you all about what I'm talking about. Where I have Asta as the Aeon of Horus, Noel as the Aeon of Isis, and Yuno as the Aeon of Set. So definitely watch those. Might even help to watch it before I release that other video that I'll be working on, talking about the Final Destinations lore and all that stuff. But yeah, it stems from the Radiate Crown, and that fifth horn can be due to royalty, right? If it does stem back to a place like Egypt, then this would be the snake on his forehead. That, like I just said, was worn by pharaohs. So now, Shelly like a halo, yeah, kind of, but it's definitely worn on the head and not above it. Dr. Jack, welcome. You're an hour late. Should I watch what happened? I mean, at some point. Maybe not like right this instant, but definitely at some point, right? But yeah, that's kind of the spoiler. I think we're going to be tracing back to more ancient roots, and Asta may end up fitting in better in another realm that is not Hino, or the Four Kingdoms, of course. And then, let's see. Oh, I never got around to talking about WK's thing. Okay. This is a really cool theory. And if you guys aren't following WK, follow WK. He used to have a YouTube channel, but took it down. He's focusing a lot on family and stuff. So, anyway, so the idea was that Asta's katana might not cut things it wants to protect due to an innate ability that's within Yami. That's due to an innate ability within Yami and not the katana or Asta. So I'm talking about the Infinity Slash, right? Where Asta can choose who it cuts, and we see that he even cuts through Noct's arm, but it doesn't cut Noct because he wants to protect Noct. And I guess you could even include Gimadello in that situation. But it dispelled the gravity that was affecting his arm. So the idea is that we've seen what Yami's katanas can do. His first one broke, which wasn't even originally from Hino anyway. It was from the Clover Kingdom. It broke. And then, here's the actual timeline of his katanas. He came to the Four Kingdoms with no katana at all. He had one made. I think Julius made it, not for him, but like paid for it, I think he said, something like that. That one broke, and that was off screen though. So the one that he got was a replacement for that. That one also broke. And then the newest one is the one that Asta has. And we've seen everything that sword can do. But, so like, the idea that Asta would be... The idea is that it seems that Asta is the one who's making it so that the sword doesn't cut things that it doesn't want to cut. Or the things that it cuts only the things that it doesn't want to protect. But the idea that WK is going for is that this is an ability that Yami has, and that the katanas are more or less just a medium for these people of Hino, or maybe even just Yami in this case, to channel their true power through, right? So, and that could be the case because it is even described with Yami that his dark magic is slow and using the katana is better anyway. But that could be for the added reason that there's a part of the spirit swordsman, as described, that they can only channel through a katana. So he would have this WK suggested the Kusanagi blade. While it's not the blade itself, he has the power of the blade, where he can cut pretty much anything. But he can use whatever sword he wants. This is why we even see him with William's sword. And something that always baffled me, but makes more sense with WK's idea, is that, remember, when Yami is given William's World Tree magic, that sword, and he blocks Lucifero's punch, and it didn't break. I mean, if we're being real, that thing should have shattered, right? Or just splintered up entirely. But it didn't. So maybe it does mean that Yami has some crazy spiritual ability within himself to be able to power up the blade, any blade that he touches, much like Asta affects every blade that he touches, right? So what makes this a really cool scene now is that now take that and imagine that he was able to do this with that ability. He shouldn't be able to do that to family. And we've never seen him turn his sword against an ally ever, except for the lore that we've never seen, which is from his rival, Jack the Ripper, where it's said that they cut a mountain while they were fighting. Now, I think it would be such a cool added factor just for Jack's character, for him to hold in a secret like this about Yami. Because remember, they were in competition for the longest time over who could cut things better, Yami's dark magic or his severing magic. And it would seem almost as if the obvious choice at the time would be Jack. But then we see Yami literally breaking dimensions with his dark magic / key, right? So he would technically be, I mean, more than technically, he would be the better cutter, but why would Jack even consider himself there? In this case, Jack can cut down any opponent he needs to, while Yami can't cut the people that he loves the most. And that's what makes Jack the better cutter. And I think just looking at that in a completely different light makes this look more sus on the clan than it does of Yami. And Yami might have been doing what he needed to do to protect Hino, because remember, they're samurai, and samurai are commissioned to protect the shogunate and the nobles of the shogunate. So, it might seem like it folded in on itself, but you can see his dad was literally getting drunk with power. And it wasn't leading anywhere good, right? And it seemed that he might have been living vicariously through Yami, because he was even saying that Ryu's Yoryoku should be great, but Yami's might be greater, thus hinting at the fact that they could maybe overthrow the Ryudo clan. So this could have been, a very much like Naruto situation, but with a really cool added twist. Something that I threw out there as well when I was talking to Minato was that, what if this was the image of a boy who was testing his blade and was almost frustrated, right, with his power, and this kind of brings in perfectly other elements that we've seen that have not been as explained as much in the series, right? We have mages like Finral and Lolo Pechka, right? We've seen offensive mages with spatial magic, and Finral is not offensive at all. And even his most offensive spell only teleports that target to a different place. So it just moves the problem, but doesn't solve the problem. Because he doesn't like hurting people. He's a pacifist. Then we have Lolo Pechka, who is so pure that she cannot learn an offensive spell, but can support other mages in battle, but can protect an entire kingdom as well. So now, think of what a perfect warrior would look like. This is someone who cannot turn their blade on the people that they protect, but can protect indefinitely and cut anything in its way that means harm to those things. And at the utmost potential for Yami is cutting dimensions. So I thought it was just a really cool way. And then think about, like, he's probably got so much pent up frustration towards his father, probably the clan, because it seemed that his dad was the demon god of that time for that clan. And, it always starts at the top, right? So if the top guy's a bad guy, then the rest are probably bad as well. So I'm just imagining a boy that got so frustrated one day and maybe just unintentionally raised his sword to another family member that was making him frustrated with talks of betrayal and just being outright nasty. And turns out that he cut them. But Yami, in this case, knows that he's got this power, so that cut shouldn't have done anything. And at worst, he was just going to look stupid. But it turned out it actually hurt them, which meant they were a threat. And in this, like, in a manic sort of craze where he's almost in denial, but also testing out, like, why am I able to cut them at all? But if they're threats, I have to keep cutting them, almost. It kind of gives me the vibe of, like, Kakashi, when he actually washes his hands till they're, like, raw. I think he said every night, because all he can see is the blood of his fallen comrade on them, even when they're completely clean. So Yami keeps going until there's nothing left to cut, and that means his entire family is gone. I mean, either way you take this, I think it just looks cooler if that innate ability to only cut things that he can protect, that he wants to protect, is I don't know. I just think it's cool. What do you guys think about it? I'm seeing lots of stuff here. Helix, now I'm looking at Asta as a relative of Adramelech with his Radiate crown, solely because I think Adramelech has radiation magic, though. Yeah, and I mean, most devils are also associated with the sun, so. But Adramelech more so, too. He's specifically a sun god, or was a sun god. Okay. So then Helix, how badass is it that Yami, there's no Tsukihiro here, that's a slave name, kills the Yami clan and then adopts the name Yami in Clover. Basically saying to himself, he is the Yami clan. That's interesting. I do think it's just a matter of cultural differences, though. Because in Japan, you introduce yourself by your last name first and then your first name. So they might have just assumed that Tsukihiro was his last name. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, at least. Dr. Jack, the not cutting thing is totally like hockey from One Piece. Is it? Or just ki control in other stories? Or chakra control in Naruto terminology, probably? I don't think there was chakra that couldn't hurt, like people they wanted to protect. I don't know anything about hockey from One Piece. I don't read One Piece. But yeah. It's possible that, I guess. And then he said, I mean, their souls were the key to the ritual, so maybe they have a special power together. I wonder if the Williams sword isn't a massive power-up, basically, if used right. I was thinking it should have been a massive power-up, and possibly even like a double-edged sword, meaning that if William's magic plus his magic opened the gates of Clip-Off, then using like a dimension slash with that would only create another anomaly that could bring demons through. So yeah, it's a little bit weird. A more complex take on the Itachi idea. I like the idea too. For Yami, like he was saving his sis and Ryu or something, or all over the country from more messed up ritual stuff that he leaves over. Yeah. Helix, you like the theory a lot. Trey, how do I see Megicula returning? That's a really good question. I yeah, okay. I would say she's probably got contingency plans like she had with the malevolent femcantation in order to manifest and escape the grasp of Lucius. As long as she's got some type of I forgot who was mentioning it in here, but this was the theory that was mentioning the Horcrux for Megicula. As long as she's got the Horcrux type thing out there, she can manifest as her demonic self and not be under the rule of Lucius. I'm not sure exactly what Lucius did with these devils, but it sounds like he may have purified them. I'm not completely sure, but they're not dead. I know that. So yeah, I don't know. I'm just thinking she's got some type of contingency plan somewhere on someone, and it's gonna manifest some way. I don't know, but I do think she could be an ally ultimately. Megicula was also in the Origin of Astaroth story, if you guys read it today. Helix, I just find it weird he never corrected the fact on his name. I mean, to be fair, didn't they just say in this chapter? So it's Ryu calls Yami, and not Tsukihiro, right? I just passed it. I just looked at Ryu's face and I passed it. Okay. What do you say? Oh no, they're talking about his own name. Okay. But he does call him Yami though. But he calls Ichika. And that could just be like that's how they refer to the women of samurai, by their first name and not their clan name. But yeah. I mean, there's nothing really to correct on, right? If you're normally addressed as your last name. It's just a confusing situation overall, though. But I see what you're saying. Trey, how did Megicula become Astaroth's successor that directly contradicts Libe's? What statement are you saying for... Oh, that, like, devils are born with the power that they have? So, I've talked about that before, and it could have to do with the split of... or the severance, if you will, of Astaroth and Astarte, even though it's not actually historically accurate to conflate the two. But just remember that Astarte is the divine form, and she has a sister who lives in the underworld, in the realm where Astaroth is supposed to rule over. That's when you're connecting the lore, because it's the exact same when you look at the left-hand paths and how to descend through the dark tree. And she's also stated in that book that I read to you guys on the Draconian path, but her name is Anat, and she's like a goddess of death, and literally they say decay as well. So if we take that, then Megicula could be Astaroth's sister, who originally ruled that realm. So she might not necessarily be new, but just taking up what had already belonged to her. But yeah, that's the idea. The other idea I'd put out is that Astaroth bifurcated himself, because that is what that realm is supposed to do. It's in charge of the bifurcation of the soul and sends the true self into Doth, which is the abyss, to see if it passes the cycle of rebirth. And if it does, they are rebirthed and they get to meet Lucifer Vocal, Aishat Zenanin, Beelzebub, Lucifer, or not Lucifer, but Satan and Moloch. So there's that. Then the last and my most hopeful theory is that she's Aisha Zenonim herself, where she's got a more dynamic role, where she's said to rule the Satariel, which is where Lucifuge is. But Lucifuge goes back and forth between that realm and the realm that Astaroth is normally in, but it's also said the same for Aisha Zenonim. So she could just have a very dynamic role and able to take that spot as it's needed. Helix, do you think that Ichika claimed Yami's katana after he left since he didn't arrive to Clover with one, and women supposedly don't fight in the Yami clan pre-slaughter? That's an interesting thought. It's possible. I don't see why not. But then again, just seeing how she's reacting, right, to this, I can't imagine she would carry that thing around. And you know what? I didn't even think of it like this, but isn't it kind of crazy that Ichika had the reaction that she did, considering that her dad almost fucking like knocked the bad shit out of her with that wooden sword, just for her looking at him? There's no way she was that attached to that clan. So that's just weird in and of itself. Her whole reaction's kind of weird. So there could be something much more going on here. Dr. Jack. Hockey means divine ki or energy, but also ambition or willpower, and it gets more complex as it's learned by the characters in One Piece, but this ability to hurt what you will is a better hockey idea. Interesting. Calling him by his last name that familiarly almost makes him man of your family name that I am also friendly with in an odd way. It's interesting. And then, is Lucida Astarte then maybe? Does this get asked several times per stream? No one's asked that specifically. I don't think she would be. Again, to credit WK Minato, I think she would more have to do with the Sisters of Fate. And she would be a Tropos, the cutter, or the one that oversees death, essentially. Given the nature of her power. So there's that. I do think, though, that this Astaroth, I think there's a bit of room to say that Astaroth is literally Julius. But remember, we have to go back here. This would make the most sense in this situation. Where Lucius makes a contract with Astaroth and somehow is able to use that body to incarnate Astaroth. Thus, in this, or reincarnate. But to reincarnate Astaroth, so that Astaroth doesn't really remember that he's a demon or anything like that. And therefore it making a little more sense as to why Julius didn't have an origin on his grimoire. He just had a lot of power, very specialized time magic that wouldn't just be due to a contract, because remember, he didn't even have a contractual marking anywhere on his body, or we can assume we didn't see what's like on his chest or anything like that, but it's usually worn on the face, right? So we didn't see anything like that for Julius. And even the Hagal symbol that Julius had was just a magic technique to help him reincarnate himself again. So the one with the symbol is Lucius, which would directly mean that he would be contracted to Julius, in quotes. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. Yeah. I mean, of course, there's a lot more, but I don't want to bore you guys with the details. She could just be upset that because he abandoned her, especially in that manner. Yeah, I don't know if you were here, but when I said it, but I'm curious as to what that looked like the actual process of leaving. Because I find it kind of hard to believe that he massacred a whole clan, looks back at his little sister, who seems to not be doing well herself. Ryu, who I think is covered in blood as well. And then just hop in a dinghy and leave with a fishing pole and no weapon. It just seems really odd to me. It doesn't seem like we have the full story. She didn't even give the full legend of Ingoshima. So, yeah, like all I'm imagining from Ichika's point of view is that, oh look, massacred clan, Yami standing there. Yami looks back. Well, and like behind or in front of Yami is that boat, and he just gets on it and sails into the moonlight. I just don't think it was that simple. And she, of course, is so young in this. So I find it, what did she say she was? She was 24. And Yami was 13 then. So what does that make her? Like, I don't know. Like not even 10 yet? So imagine trying to tell a story like this, recalling from that age. Things look different than what they really are. That's all I'm saying. Dr. Jack, I mean, a bifurcation of Aseroth or two different devils, which that can go a number of special ways to be interesting for sure. Definitely. Sunjin, I don't like the way Libe's character is going. Oh, interesting. Sitting on, oh yeah. And not saying anything either, right? He has the best potential to surpass Lucifero, and yet he's not training. Thank you. I think you're right. Libe has the absolute ability to run the underworld, but he's leaving it all up to Asa. You're right. That's absolutely right. And I also like that. I also don't like that he's just been sitting there the whole time listening. Like, I don't know. It just seems kind of weird to me. Yami backstory required for sure. Absolutely. And then Trayvon, I hope Tabata eventually tells us why Morris wanted to get Lucifero out so badly. Was it their contract or a secret plan with Lucius? That's a good question too. I don't know what Morris's deal was. And I'm sure we're gonna get it. I don't think Morris is done by a long shot. I think there's much more to that story. And it seemed that he was on a quest, though, to begin with. And he was already on to this, like, spiritual hybrid type thing. But was trying to perfect it, more or less. So, I think we'll definitely get to see more of him later on. Dr. Jack, of the event, I bet he's just sad there, you know? Unless he's possessed because of them or something. I don't know. You mean like he's just sad and standing there and just happens to be holding a bloody katana? Yeah, that's something we were talking about earlier in the stream too. Wasn't sure if you were there yet. But, no one is actively falling in this scene. He's not in a battle pose. He does look like he regrets what he did. But the blood on that blade is very fresh. Like he just cut something. And I was just saying that devils don't leave behind anything. So if they happen to be devils, or let's even take it another route. Let's say that they became devils, or became possessed by devils, and he had to do that. That could definitely put another spin on this. And Yami leaving could be a protective measure for the land of Hino, because if they were able to be corrupted by these devils, then he might not be too far behind. And he went and stranded himself, maybe not intentionally in the Four Kingdoms, but he just wanted to be away from the one precious thing, or two, I guess, which were Ryu and Ichika. And, he didn't want them to fall under that fate. And he knows that he knows he was destined to become the demon god. So I don't think a kid of that age is gonna, necessarily, I hate to say it, but, KYT, just unalive themselves, given that they would want to experience a life if they could. and be able to protect if they can. So, I don't know. I think that could definitely hold up in Yami's favor. You know, Kijin are devils, so who knows? Who knows? So Shelly, you think that Ichika and Lucida were the same person? You said a lot of people are the same people as Lucida, Shelly, because their names sound so similar in Ichika and Lucida. I don't know. Maybe in like the Japanese, the way they say it is Richita, because those are the only sounds they have in their language. But it's a Lucida. Well, I guess it wouldn't be. Is it Lichita? I don't know how they pronounce it in German. Trayvon, leaks are coming in an hour or so. So, here's my question to you guys. Should I stay on for the leaks? Or should I not stay on for the leaks and just tweet as they come out? That's the question. That is the question. Or should I make a separate live for I don't know. If you guys want me to go live or stay live for the leaks, then I would just make a separate live entirely so I can make this one thing. Or not, and I can just tweet out what I think here. Dr. Jack, are we going to check out whatever drops? Is it scans or still preview stuff or the fake spoils? Yeah, let's, let me see. What's going on in the land of Twitter here? Let's the latest. Spoilers soon. Everyone's just saying spoilers soon. 4 minutes ago, an hour to an hour and a half confirmed. So it's up to you guys. I don't really care either way. I have Sunjin saying stay and just do a different live. Does anyone else agree? I would do a poll on here if I could. I don't think I have the ability to though. So you guys have to tell me if you guys would like me to go live or not. And I will take silences as not. Jeez. We did a lot of talking today, you guys. A lot of talking. I'm hoping I got through everything I needed to go through. Well, that Kaiju number 8 chapter was crazy, by the way. Super crazy. Okay. Well, I got no other say from anyone except for Sunjin. So, Sunjin, maybe just for you, I will go live in about an hour. We'll see. We'll see. But, here we go. Oh, I guess one last point here. Brokey brought up an interesting question. He has Worm Lucifera over a third of Megicula, which is over the Fusion Lilith. And I don't know if I agree with that. Now, I'm not a power scaler. Not a power scaler. However, I'm thinking that Nolith wins them because they're their jump in power for Fusion, as Nox said, wasn't just 1+1. They were like completely out of their league. Like completely out of their league. Now, for Megicula, I have to assume we saw those runes, right? That leak off of her, that are the decaying world spell. I would assume that they could burn those spells. And what does it even look like to curse a devil anyway? I don't think you can really do that. You're as cursed as you can get, right? So I don't know about that. And then as far as like summoning other things and making them devils, they would just blow right through that. They were just about to nuke a whole like kingdom. So Megicula's out of the question for me. So that already jumps her up to second at least. Now we have Worm Lucifero. Worm Lucifero didn't really do anything. He existed, and the worst thing was presence of the Demon King, which Nala should be able to stand in if Adremelech is able to stand in it himself. So I'm not really seeing, and put it this way too. I feel like Lucifero in the Worm version was struggling to take out the Black Bull's base. So I don't see that Worm thing winning out to Nalith, especially when they can burn and freeze that whole aggregation thing that he was doing. By the way, I'm very convinced that this form of Lucifero is like the dragon form of Lucifero. Just want to put that out into existence. But anyway, yeah, look, there's so much more of him to burn and freeze. So I don't see how he would win that. You know what I mean? But in raw power, Lucifero just wins out, right? Because he's got the most raw power. Megicula wins that too. Maybe. Maybe Nalith might be there and then Megicula. So I don't know. Not a power scale though. What do you guys say? Ichika could also be upset because without the Yami clan's security of Ryu, part of Hino, it could have led to an invasion or distress. Could have, but she does not express that either. So I can't assume that. And then so she knows that Yami's connections lead to and thus hates him even more because of it. Dr. Jack Tabata has a lot of stuff he can do these days. I don't know how he can get numerical values to stuff that gets defeated narratively and so on, Yeah, that's the whole power scaling thing. I don't know where they get numbers to start with sometimes. But I mean, gravity has a measurement for sure, so that's probably a good starting point. I don't know if he actually put numbers on this, but anyway, power scaling in general, I don't know where people get numbers, so it's just crazy stuff to me, but interesting. Anyway, I think I'll leave it here. I will consider coming back to look at the lives together, or the leaks together. So I would say be on the lookout for that. And if I don't, I'll definitely be on Twitter anyway, and I'll be tweeting out what I think about the stuff. So thank you guys for tuning in. I do want to get off, grab something to eat, just in case I do come back and do the live. It's looking likely. I got time. I got time today. So, yeah, I would say for now, let's plan on it. And if you're not here, that's fine. I'll see you guys in the next video. If not, or if you do, I will see you soon. But anyway, it's been Jack Oates to go. You either know or you don't.